I was cutting into my grilled salmon when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text made my blood freeze. "Don't react, they're recording you." My mother-in-law, Margaret, was mid-sentence about the new community center. I forced my smile wider, nodding as if nothing happened. But my eyes swept the elegant dining room of their estate, the antique mirror behind my father-in-law, Gerald, the ornate chandelier above, my sister-in-law, Diane's perfectly manicured hands gesturing too enthusiastically. Something was terribly wrong. My fingers trembled as I placed my phone face down on the pristine white tablecloth. Margaret's voice continued its melodic rise and fall, describing the charity gala she was organizing for the new pediatric wing at Riverside Hospital. I took a slow sip of water, using the moment to scan the room more carefully. "Aileen, dear, you're being awfully quiet." Margaret observed her gray eyes sharp despite her warm tone. "Is everything all right?" "Just enjoying this wonderful meal," I replied, gesturing to my plate. "The salmon is perfectly cooked." Nathan, my husband of 3 years, reached over and squeezed my hand. His touch was meant to be reassuring, but today it felt different. Was he part of whatever this was? No, I couldn't think that way. Not about Nathan. Gerald cleared his throat, the sound commanding attention as it always did. At 68, my father-in-law still carried himself like the banking executive he'd been for 40 years. "Nathan tells us you've been working on that new marketing campaign for the Fletcher Foundation." "Yes, we're launching next month." I kept my voice steady while my mind raced. The centerpiece caught my attention again, an elaborate arrangement of white orchids and roses. Beautiful, but something seemed off about the way the flowers were positioned. Then I saw it. Nestled between 2 orchids barely visible was a tiny black lens, no bigger than a pearl. A camera. They were recording us right now. "How wonderful that you're helping such a worthy cause," Diane chimed in, her voice just a touch too bright. My sister-in-law had always been hard to read, but today she seemed almost electric with nervous energy. She kept touching her pearl necklace, adjusting her auburn hair, smoothing her navy dress. I needed to get out of this room, needed space to think. "Would you excuse me for just a moment? I need to use the powder room." "Of course, dear," Margaret said, but I caught the quick glance she exchanged with Gerald. The walk to the bathroom felt like miles. Their colonial-style home had always felt imposing with its high ceilings and formal furnishings, but today it felt suffocating. I locked the door behind me and immediately pulled out my phone. 99 missed calls, all from Grace. My best friend since college never called more than twice in a row. 99 calls meant something catastrophic. My hands shook as I scrolled through the text previews. "Call me now." "Aileen, where are you? Do not trust them. Someone came asking about you. This is serious, please." Before I could read more, a knock rattled the door. "Aileen." Diane's voice was syrupy sweet. "Everything okay in there? Mother's about to serve dessert and they have something special planned." Something special planned. The words sent ice through my veins. "Just freshening up," I called back, forcing lightness into my voice. "Be right out." I heard her heels click away on the marble floor. Quickly, I scrolled to Grace's most recent messages, but before I could read them, my phone screen went black. Dead. Which was impossible. I'd charged it fully before leaving home. Taking a deep breath, I studied my reflection. My dark hair was still neatly pinned back, my makeup unmarred despite the stress. I could do this. Whatever was happening, I could maintain the facade until I figured out their game. When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. They were all seated exactly as before, but there was an expectancy in the air like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. "Perfect timing," Gerald announced, standing with his champagne flute. "We have some exciting news to share." Nathan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Did he know what was coming? His blue eyes met mine, and I saw confusion there, maybe even concern. That gave me hope. "As you all know," Gerald continued, "the Brennan family has always valued tradition, integrity, and above all, transparency." Transparency. The word hung in the air like a threat. Margaret picked up where he left off. which is why we're so thrilled to announce that our family has been selected to participate in a documentary series about modern American families. A documentary Nathan's surprise seemed genuine. "Yes, darling," his mother beamed, focusing on how successful families navigate the complexities of modern life. The production company was particularly interested in our family's approach to financial planning and marital harmony. Financial planning, marital harmony, each phrase felt loaded with hidden meaning. Diane practically bounced in her seat. "They'll be following us for 6 months, capturing our authentic family dynamics. Isn't it exciting?" "The crew arrives next week." Gerald added, his gaze fixed on me. "They'll want to interview each of us individually, of course, about our backgrounds, our values, how we contribute to the family's success." My phone buzzed against the tablecloth. Another unknown number. Without looking, I could feel the weight of their stares as I glanced at the screen. "They hired a private investigator. Check your car." "More work emails." Margaret asked, her tone deceptively casual. "On a Sunday, you young people never stop, do you?" "Just a reminder about tomorrow's meeting." I lied, slipping the phone into my purse. "You were saying about the documentary." Gerald's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, well, we thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to showcase what makes the Brennan family special. Our commitment to honesty, our belief that secrets have no place in a healthy family." The way he emphasized secrets made my skin crawl. Under the table, I gripped my napkin until my knuckles went white. "Speaking of which," Margaret interjected smoothly, "we've been meaning to ask you, Aileen. Nathan mentioned you've been making frequent trips downtown these past few weeks, business meetings." The question landed like a trap. I had been going downtown, but not for business. I'd been meeting with Stanley Morrison, my grandmother's attorney, to finalize some paperwork related to her estate. Nothing sinister, nothing that concerned them, but somehow their tone suggested they already knew. "Various appointments," I said carefully. "You know how busy spring can be in marketing." "Of course," Margaret murmured, but her smile was sharp as glass. The dessert arrived individual chocolate soufflés that under normal circumstances would have been delightful. Today, each spoonful felt like sawdust in my mouth. Conversation continued around me, but I caught the undercurrents. Every topic seemed designed to probe, to test, to catch me in some kind of admission. When Gerald started discussing the importance of prenuptial agreements in modern marriages, despite knowing full well that Nathan and I didn't have one, I knew I needed to escape. The walls were closing in, and that camera in the centerpiece felt like an unblinking eye. "This has been lovely," I said, standing perhaps too abruptly, but I just remembered I left some work documents in my car that need to be secured, client confidentiality and all that. "Surely that can wait," Margaret protested. "I'm afraid not, but I'll just be a moment." I kissed Nathan's cheek, noting how tense he seemed. "Why don't you tell them about the Henderson project while I'm gone?" Before anyone could object further, I was moving through their foyer past the grandfather clock and the oil paintings of stern-faced Brennan ancestors. My heels clicked against the tile as I pushed through the heavy front door into the afternoon air. The driveway held our cars like a small fleet, Gerald's Mercedes, Margaret's Lexus, Diane's BMW, and our more modest Honda Accord. I moved quickly to our car, unlocking it with shaking hands. At first, everything looked normal, but the text had been specific. "Check your car." I ran my hands under the driver's seat, feeling along the edges. Nothing. Then under the passenger side, where my fingers hit something that shouldn't be there. A small black device no bigger than a matchbox attached with industrial-strength magnet. A GPS tracker. My heart hammered as I continued searching. Behind the rearview mirror, I found another device, this one with a tiny microphone attached. They weren't just tracking where I went, they were listening to every conversation. But it was what I found in the glove compartment that made my blood run cold. A manila envelope, one that definitely hadn't been there this morning. Inside were photographs time-stamped and crystal clear. Me entering Stanley Morrison's law office building. Me leaving 45 minutes later. Me at the coffee shop afterwards studying documents. Me at the bank the following day. They'd been watching me for weeks. The final photo showed me in Stanley's actual office, taken somehow through the window. It was grainy, but clear enough to see the papers on his desk, the folder marked Elizabeth Hartley Estate, visible in the corner. They knew about the inheritance. Somehow they knew about the money my grandmother had left me. Money I hadn't told anyone about yet, not even Nathan, because I was still processing the loss, still trying to understand why Grandma Elizabeth had kept such a massive fortune secret all these years. My phone buzzed again. This time the message was longer. Get back inside before they get suspicious. Pretend you found nothing. I'll explain everything, but you need to survive this lunch first. They're planning something bigger than you know. Trust no one except Grace. Patricia. Patricia. I didn't know any Patricia. Hands trembling, I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. Whatever game my in-laws were playing, I was already 3 moves behind. But I'd learned something valuable. They thought they were hunting me. They had no idea they'd just revealed themselves as the predators. I slipped back into the dining room with what I hoped was a casual smile. The chocolate souffle at my place had deflated into a sad puddle, but no one had cleared the plates. They were all waiting, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Everything's secure," Margaret asked, her tone light, but her eyes sharp as broken glass. "All handled," I replied, sliding into my seat. The chair felt different now, like sitting in a witness box. Nathan reached for my hand again, but this time I noticed the slight tremor in his fingers. "You were gone a while." I was starting to worry. "Just needed to organize a few files." I squeezed his hand, searching his face for any sign of deception. His concern seemed real, but then again, I'd thought this whole family was real until 20 minutes ago. Gerald stood again, and I had to suppress the urge to flee. He commanded the room with the same presence that had built his banking empire, though I now wondered exactly how that empire had been constructed. "Since we're all here," he began, his voice carrying that distinctive bourbon smoothness that had charmed investors for decades. "There's something specific we need to discuss, something that affects all of us, but particularly you, Aileen." My chest tightened. Here it was. The documentary producers were very thorough in their background checks. Margaret added, dabbing her lips with her monogrammed napkin. "Standard procedure," they assured us. "They want to ensure all participating families meet their criteria for authenticity." Background checks. Nathan's voice carried an edge of irritation. "You didn't mention that before." "Oh, darling, it's nothing invasive," Diane said quickly. Too quickly. "Just basic verification. Educational history, employment records, that sort of thing." Gerald's gray eyes fixed on me like a predator tracking prey. Imagine our surprise when they informed us that certain financial discrepancies appeared in their research. The word discrepancies hung in the air like a noose. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said carefully. "Don't you?" Margaret's smile was razor thin. "It seems there have been some significant financial transactions in your name recently, transfers that Nathan knew nothing about." I felt Nathan stiffen beside me. His hand didn't leave mine, but his grip changed, becoming more of a question than comfort. Now. Gerald raised a hand as if calming children. "We're not making accusations. We're simply concerned. In a marriage, financial transparency is crucial. Secrets about money can destroy even the strongest bonds." "Which is why," Margaret continued seamlessly, "we were so relieved when the producers suggested including a financial counseling component in the documentary, a chance for young couples to demonstrate healthy financial communication. The trap was elegant, I had to admit. They'd boxed me in perfectly, refused to discuss it, and I'd look suspicious on camera. Admit to the inheritance and they'd have their hooks in before I even understood what it meant. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I began, but Diane cut me off. $3.2 million. She said, the number falling from her lips like drops of poison. "That's quite a misunderstanding, wouldn't you say?" The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan's hand went slack in mine. "What?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Your grandmother's estate." Gerald said, watching me with satisfaction. Elizabeth Hartley left you quite a substantial sum. You've been meeting with her attorney Stanley Morrison for the past 3 weeks. The probate cleared 10 days ago. I could feel the blood draining from my face. How could they know such specific details? Estate proceedings were private, confidential. Unless... You seem shocked, Margaret observed. Surely you weren't planning to keep this from your husband indefinitely. The words stuck in my throat. How could I explain that I'd been planning to tell Nathan that I just needed time to process losing the grandmother who'd raised me after my parents died? How could I defend myself when they'd already painted me as the villain? $3 million. Nathan repeated, and I heard something break in his voice. You inherited $3 million and didn't tell me. Nathan, I was going to... When? The hurt in his eyes was genuine, and it cut deeper than any accusation. When were you going to tell me after you'd moved it all offshore, after you'd filed for divorce? What Nathan, no, the accusation hit like a physical blow. I would never... The investigators found some very interesting searches in your browsing history, Diane added with false sympathy. Divorce lawyers, asset protection strategies, offshore accounts. That's not true. But even as I protested, I remembered the strange glitches on my laptop recently, the way passwords seemed to stop working, forcing me to reset them. They'd been in my computer. They'd planted those searches. We're not here to judge, Gerald said magnanimously. We understand that large inheritances can be overwhelming. The temptation to protect assets to ensure financial independence, these are natural impulses. Which is why we're offering to help, Margaret added. The documentary provides the perfect framework for financial transparency, full disclosure, professional guidance, and the support of family to ensure this windfall benefits everyone. Benefits everyone. There it was, the real agenda starting to show its teeth. I need some air, Nathan said suddenly, standing so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. Darling, please. Margaret reached for him. Let's discuss this rationally. Rationally. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I just found out my wife has been hiding millions of dollars. What's rational about that? He strode from the room and I moved to follow, but Gerald's hand on my shoulder stopped me. His grip was firm, just shy of painful. Let him go, he advised. He needs time to process. Meanwhile, we should discuss the practicalities. What practicalities? I shrugged off his hand anger, finally burning through the shock. The documentary, of course, Margaret said smoothly. The producers are expecting full financial disclosure from all participants. Joint tax returns, bank statements, investment portfolios, everything must be transparent. And if I refuse, Diane laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking crystal. Why would you refuse unless you have something more to hide? Besides, Gerald added, returning to his seat with the confidence of a man who knew he'd already won, Nathan has already signed the family's participation agreement. As his spouse, you're included by default. That's not legal, I protested. Isn't it? He produced a document from the sideboard drawer. They'd had it ready waiting. Page 12, subsection 3. Spousal assets and obligations are considered joint for the purposes of documentation. Nathan's signature is binding for both parties. I scanned the document, my heart sinking. It was riddled with legal language, but the essence was clear. By signing, Nathan had given them access to everything. This won't hold up in court, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. Court. Margaret pressed a hand to her chest in theatrical shock. Who said anything about court? We're a family, Aileen. Families don't resolve their differences in court. Although, Gerald mused, if someone were to contest this agreement, it might raise questions about what they're trying to hide. The production company has excellent lawyers. They'd be obligated to investigate any irregularities. And investigations can be so invasive, Diane added. They might uncover all sorts of things. Old traumas, family secrets, past indiscretions. Nothing stays buried when lawyers start digging. Old traumas. The phrase hit like a slap. Were they threatening to investigate my parents' death? The car accident that had orphaned me at 17. What do you want? I asked, abandoning all pretense. Want... Margaret's eyes widened in false innocence. We want what's best for our family, for Nathan, for your marriage. We want transparency, Gerald said firmly. Full financial disclosure, joint management of assets, family involvement in major decisions. You want my inheritance, I stated flatly. How crude, Margaret murmured. We want to ensure that Elizabeth's generous gift is used wisely, for the benefit of your marriage, your future children, the family legacy. Nathan could use support in his business ventures, Gerald added. $3 million could launch the expansion he's dreamed of, unless of course you were planning something else with the money. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were framing their greed as concern, their manipulation as love. And they'd trapped Nathan in the middle, ensuring that protecting my inheritance would look like betrayal. My phone buzzed. Another text from Patricia. Don't sign anything. Stall. Help is coming. I need to think, I said, standing on unsteady legs. Of course. Margaret agreed readily. Too readily. Take all the time you need. The film crew arrives Thursday. That gives you 3 days to make the right decision. 3 days, Gerald repeated. After that, the documentary moves forward with or without your cooperation, and incomplete financial pictures can look so suspicious on camera. I left them there, their satisfied smiles following me like shadows. In the hallway, I found Nathan sitting on the bottom step of their grand staircase, his head in his hands. Nathan, I began, but he held up a hand. Were you ever going to tell me... His voice was raw. Or was I going to find out when you served me papers? It's not what you think. I love you. The money doesn't change that. Doesn't it? He looked up and the pain in his eyes was real. $3 million, Aileen. That's not just money. That's freedom. That's choices. That's a whole life you could have without me. I don't want a life without you, I insisted, sitting beside him. Then why the secrets? Why the sneaking around? Why the private meetings with lawyers? How could I explain that I'd been trying to protect him, that something about his family had always felt off, and my grandmother's lawyer had advised discretion until everything was properly structured? How could I tell him I'd sensed danger without sounding paranoid? Your parents, I started carefully. How much do you know about their finances? He frowned at the apparent change of subject. What does that have to do with anything? Just humor me. Your father's banking career, the retirement, the investments. Do you know specifics? Dad's always handled that stuff, he said slowly. Why? Because I think your parents are broke, I wanted to say. Because I think they see my inheritance as their life raft. Because there are cameras in the centerpiece and trackers in our car, and someone named Patricia is warning me to run. Instead, I said, I think we need to be careful, both of us. Something about this documentary feels wrong. Wrong. He laughed bitterly. What feels wrong is finding out my wife is secretly a millionaire. Nathan, please, can we go home and talk? Really talk away from here. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, let's go home. We gathered our things amid Margaret's protests about family unity and Gerald's reminders about Thursday's deadline. Diane hugged me goodbye, and I felt her fingers brush against my purse, checking for my phone. As we drove away in our bugged car, I kept my voice light, chatting about work and the weather while my mind raced. 3 days to figure out their plan, 3 days to protect my grandmother's gift, 3 days to save my marriage from whatever poison they were spreading. My phone lit up with another message from the mysterious Patricia. Tomorrow noon, Rosewood Cafe on 5th. Come alone. Trust no one else. Your grandmother knew this day would come. I deleted the message immediately, my heart pounding. What had my grandmother known? What had she seen in the Brennan family that I'd missed? As Nathan drove in stony silence, I stared out at the familiar streets of our suburban neighborhood and wondered if anything in my life was actually what it seemed. The inheritance was real. My love for Nathan was real. Everything else was starting to feel like an elaborate performance, and I was the only one who didn't know my lines. That evening dragged like molasses. Nathan and I moved around our house like ghosts, neither quite able to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. He'd retreated to his office allegedly to work on blueprints for a client, but I could hear him pacing the floorboards, creaking out his agitation. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my laptop screen without seeing it. My mind kept circling back to those photos in the glove compartment. Professional quality, multiple angles. Someone had been following me for weeks, documenting my every move. The unknown number texted again at 10:30. Check under the driver's seat. Deep under. There's more. Nathan was in the shower. I grabbed a flashlight and slipped out to the garage, my heart hammering against my ribs. Our Honda sat innocently under the fluorescent lights, but now I saw it as a crime scene. I'd already found the GPS tracker earlier, but Patricia's message suggested I'd missed something. I contorted myself to reach deeper under the seat, my fingers scraping against metal and carpet until they hit something else. An envelope taped far back, where only someone looking hard would find it. My hands trembled as I opened it. More photographs spilled out, but these were different. These weren't surveillance shots of me. They were photos of Nathan, meeting with a man I didn't recognize outside a law office. The building's sign was partially visible, Whitfield and Associates Attorneys at Law. Timestamps showed these were taken 2 weeks ago before today's confrontation. 2 weeks ago, Nathan had supposedly been at a construction site in New Jersey. The last photo showed Nathan shaking hands with the lawyer, a briefcase being passed between them. The image was grainy, but the implication was clear. My husband had been meeting with an attorney before he knew about my inheritance, before today's dramatic reveal. Aileen. I spun around to find Nathan in the garage doorway, hair still damp from his shower. His eyes moved from my face to the photos in my hands, and something shifted in his expression. Guilt, fear. I couldn't tell anymore. "What are those?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "You tell me." I held up the photo of him with the lawyer. 2 weeks ago, when you were supposedly in New Jersey. He stepped into the garage, closing the door behind him. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the roof of the car that had been recording our conversations for God knows how long. "It's not what it looks like," he said finally. "Really? Because it looks like you were meeting with a divorce attorney while lying to me about where you were." "I wasn't. Yes, I met with Whitfield, but not for divorce." He ran a hand through his wet hair, leaving it standing in spikes. "Dad set up the meeting, said it was about estate planning, making sure we were protected." "Protected from what?" "From..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "From financial complications. He said with the business expanding, we needed better legal structures. And you believed that..." "Why wouldn't I? He's my father, Aileen. He's always looked out for me." The naivety in his voice made me want to scream. "Nathan, there's a GPS tracker under our car, recording devices. Your parents have been surveilling us." "That's insane," he protested, but I was already pulling him around to the driver's side, showing him the tracker I'd found earlier. His face went pale in the harsh garage light. "What the hell?" "There's more. A recording device behind the rearview mirror." I showed him that too, watching his expression shift from disbelief to something closer to horror. "Why would they..." He couldn't finish the question. "The inheritance," I said simply. "Somehow they found out about my grandmother's money before either of us knew." "That's impossible. Estate lawyers don't share that information. Unless someone's accessing private information illegally." I thought about my hacked computer, the planted browser history. "Nathan, what exactly did you discuss with that lawyer?" He slumped against the car, suddenly looking exhausted. "Asset protection, joint property rights. He asked a lot of questions about your family, your background. I thought it was strange, but Dad said it was standard." Did you sign anything? Just a consultation agreement, nothing binding. But doubt crept into his voice. At least that's what they told me. My phone buzzed. Patricia, again. He's not lying, but he's not telling you everything. Ask about the business loans. Nathan, I said slowly, what's going on with your business? Really? What do you mean? Your expansion plans, the new projects. Where's the funding coming from? He looked away, and in that moment, I knew. Your parents. They've been helping, he admitted. Small loans here and there, interest-free family support. Dad said it was an investment in my future. How much? Total maybe $80,000. $80,000. I sank onto the garage steps. Nathan, that's not family support, that's leverage. They're my parents, he said weakly, but I could see the doubt creeping in. Your parents who put surveillance equipment in our car, who hired private investigators to follow me, who somehow knew about an inheritance that was sealed in probate. I held up the photos. Who sent you to a lawyer to discuss asset protection before they revealed they knew about the money? Nathan stared at the evidence spread between us, and I watched the truth settle over him like a shroud. His parents hadn't been helping him. They'd been positioning him. Oh God, he breathed. The documentary, it's not real, is it? I don't know. Maybe it started real and they co-opted it. Maybe they created it. Either way, it's their mechanism to get access to my grandmother's money. Our money, he corrected automatically, then caught himself. I mean, your money. God, I don't even know anymore. That's the point, I realized. They've created so much confusion, so much conflict between us that we can't think straight. Nathan slid down to sit beside me on the steps. What do we do? First, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I pulled out my phone, showed him Patricia's messages. Someone's been trying to warn me. She says she'll explain everything tomorrow. Who's Patricia? I have no idea, but she knew about the surveillance before I found it. She's been accurate about everything so far. Nathan read through the messages, his frown deepening. She mentions Grace. You should call her, find out what those 99 calls were about. He was right. I'd been so overwhelmed by the revelations at lunch that I'd almost forgotten about Grace's frantic attempts to reach me. I dialed her number, putting it on speaker so Nathan could hear. She answered on the first ring. Finally, Aileen, where have you been? I've been going crazy. I'm sorry I was at lunch with Nathan's parents. What's wrong? What's wrong? Some creep has been stalking me for information about you. That's what's wrong. He showed up at my apartment, my gym, even my office. What, who? He said his name was Mark Chapman, claimed he was doing a background check for some documentary. But Aileen, the questions he was asking, they weren't documentary questions. My eyes met Nathan's. What kind of questions? About your spending habits, your relationship history, whether you'd ever talked about marrying for money. He offered me $10,000, Aileen. $10,000, just to say you'd made some comment about hitting the jackpot with Nathan's family. Please tell me you didn't. Of course not. I told him to go to hell. But then I did some digging. There is no Mark Chapman registered as a private investigator in the state. The business card he gave me. The company doesn't exist. Grace, I need you to listen carefully. Do you still have any recordings or evidence of these interactions? A pause. Actually, yeah. After the second time he approached me, I started recording on my phone, and I kept the business card, took photos of the check he tried to give me. Relief flooded through me. You brilliant paranoid woman. Paranoid Aileen, what's going on? Why are people investigating you? I gave her the abbreviated version, the inheritance, the surveillance, the family ambush at lunch. With each detail, Nathan's face grew paler. Holy hell, Grace breathed. This is like something out of a crime show. What are you going to do? I'm meeting with someone tomorrow who might have answers. Can you send me everything you have on this fake investigator? Already uploading to the cloud. Aileen, be careful. These people sound dangerous. After I hung up, Nathan and I sat in silence for a moment. The garage felt different now, knowing our car had been turned into a listening device. We should check the house, he said quietly. The next hour was surreal. We went through our home like detectives, checking light fixtures, looking behind picture frames, examining electronics. We found 2 more devices, one in our bedroom lamp, another in the kitchen smoke detector. Our private life had been turned into a reality show without our consent. How long? Nathan wondered aloud, holding the tiny microphone from our bedroom. How long have they been listening to us? I thought about conversations we'd had, intimate moments, arguments about his mother's passive-aggressive comments, discussions about starting a family, all of it recorded, cataloged, probably analyzed for weakness. I feel sick, I said, and I meant it. Nathan pulled me into his arms, and for the first time since lunch, I felt like we were on the same side again. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I doubted you. They played us against each other, I said against his chest. That was the point, divide and conquer. Well, they failed. He pulled back to look at me. We're going to fight this, together. Whatever they're planning, whatever they want, they're not getting it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a longer message from Patricia. Good you found the devices. Don't remove them yet, that'll tip them off. Play along for now. Your grandmother left you more than money. She left you protection. Stanley Morrison has a sealed file you need to see. Tell him Elizabeth Sparrow has come home to nest. He'll understand. And Aileen, your parents' accident, wasn't exactly what the report said. Thursday's deadline isn't about a documentary. It's about something much worse. Sleep with one eye open. They're escalating. I showed Nathan the message. He read it 3 times, his jaw tightening with each pass. Your parents' accident. What does that mean? I don't know. But a cold dread was settling in my stomach. My parents had died when their car went off a mountain road during a rainstorm. No other vehicles involved. No signs of mechanical failure. Just a tragic accident on a dangerous curve. Who is this woman? Nathan demanded. How does she know about your grandmother, about your parents? I'll find out tomorrow. I deleted the message following Patricia's earlier pattern. But Nathan, if she's right about Thursday being more than a documentary deadline, then my parents are planning something. He finished the thought, his voice grim. Something they need your cooperation for, or at least your silence. We looked at each other, 2 people who'd walked into a trap disguised as a family lunch. But now we knew about the trap. Now we could see the bars. What do you think they really want? I asked. Nathan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with a truth he'd probably been avoiding his whole life. Everything. They want everything. They always have. As we prepared for bed in our bugged house, maintaining the pretense of normalcy, I thought about my grandmother. Elizabeth Hartley had been a quiet woman who lived modestly despite apparently having millions. She'd raised me after my parents died, never remarrying, never complaining about the hand life had dealt her. But now I wondered if her quiet life had been by choice or design. Had she known the Brennan family would come calling eventually? Had she been protecting me even then? Nathan lay beside me in our compromised bedroom, both of us afraid to speak freely. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the listening device in our lamp, wondering who was on the other end. Gerald Margaret. Some hired technician paid to transcribe our pillow talk. My phone set to silent lit up with one final message. Your grandmother was the smartest woman I ever knew. She saw this coming 20 years ago. Trust her planning. Trust Stanley. And whatever you do, don't let them isolate you. That's when they're most dangerous. I deleted it and closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Somewhere in this city, my in-laws were plotting. Somewhere, a woman named Patricia held answers. And somewhere in my grandmother's careful planning lay the key to surviving whatever Thursday would bring. The trap was closing, but maybe we weren't the only ones who could spring it. Monday morning arrived with spring rain pattering against our windows. Nathan and I moved through our morning routine like actors aware of our audience, keeping conversation light and mundane. He left for work at 8, kissing me goodbye with a whisper of "be careful" that the microphones couldn't catch. I waited until 9:30 before leaving for work myself, taking a circuitous route that would confuse any GPS tracking. At 11:45, I parked 3 blocks from the Rosewood Cafe and walked the rest of the way checking reflections in store windows for anyone following. The cafe was one of those artisanal places that served $12 sandwiches and acted like they'd invented coffee. I chose a corner table with clear sightlines to both entrances and waited. At exactly noon, a woman entered, who could only be Patricia. Mid-50s steel gray hair in an elegant chignon, wearing a business suit that screamed power, and a face that had seen too much. Her eyes swept the room professionally before landing on me. "Aileen," she said, sliding into the seat across from me, "you look just like Elizabeth at your age." "You knew my grandmother for 40 years? We met when she was working at First National Bank and I was a junior analyst." Patricia signaled the waitress for coffee, her movements economical and precise. "Your grandmother was the one who warned me about Gerald Brennan." "Warned you?" Patricia's smile was razor sharp. "This was back in 1998. Gerald and I were business partners. We'd started an investment firm together riding the tech boom. Everything was golden until I discovered he'd been siphoning funds into offshore accounts. He stole from you. $2.8 million to be exact. When I confronted him, he'd already prepared a counter-narrative, forged documents showing I was the embezzler, testimonies from employees he'd bribed, even a paper trail suggesting I had a gambling addiction I'd never had. The waitress brought Patricia's coffee. She waited until we were alone again before continuing. "Your grandmother was the forensic accountant the bank hired to investigate. She found the truth, documented everything. But before we could act, Gerald played his masterstroke. He'd been having an affair with my husband, had photos, videos, proof that would have destroyed my marriage and custody of my children in that era's courts. He blackmailed you. Exquisitely. I could pursue justice and lose my family, or stay quiet and just lose my money." Patricia's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "I chose my children. Gerald got away with it, used my money to build his banking empire. And your grandmother, she never forgot. Why didn't she ever tell me about this?" "Because Elizabeth played the long game. She knew Gerald would eventually come for you once you were connected to money. So she prepared." Patricia pulled out a tablet, swiping to a document. "Your inheritance isn't just $3.2 million, Aileen. That's just what cleared probate publicly." My breath caught. "What?" "The real estate is held in trusts, multiple properties across 3 states. The investment portfolio is managed by a firm in Switzerland. The total value is closer to $18 million. 18? But that's impossible. Grandma lived so modestly." By design. She knew the Brennans had connections everywhere. The modest estate was bait small enough to seem manageable, large enough to attract their greed. Patricia's eyes glinted. She wanted them to show their hand. "You're saying my grandmother used me as bait?" "No, she prepared you as a warrior. There's a difference." Patricia pulled up another document. "This is a record of every interaction between the Brennan family and their victims over the past 25 years. Your grandmother compiled it meticulously." I scrolled through the list, my stomach turning. A dozen names, maybe more. Business partners who'd lost everything, employees who'd been framed for crimes, investors who'd been ruined, and beside each name amounts, assets absorbed, lives destroyed. "They're professional predators," I breathed. "With a very specific pattern. They identify targets with assets but no strong family protection. They integrate them into the family through marriage or business partnerships. Then they systematically isolate, compromise, and extract." "Nathan's not part of this," I said quickly. Patricia studied me. "No, I don't believe he is. Gerald's mistake was thinking he could control his son completely. Nathan's integrity is real, which is probably why they've kept him in debt and dependent. The business loans." "Exactly. Gerald never gives without taking more. Those loans, I guarantee they have acceleration clauses, hidden penalties, personal guarantees that could strip Nathan of everything. My phone buzzed. Nathan, Mom just called. Family dinner tonight, mandatory. She sounded strange. They're escalating, Patricia observed, reading my expression. Monday dinner isn't their pattern. Something spooked them. What do I do? First, you visit Stanley Morrison. Your grandmother left specific instructions for this scenario. Second, you document everything. Third, you give them exactly what they expect to see a woman slowly cracking under pressure. And fourth, Patricia's smile was genuinely warm for the first time. Fourth, you spring the trap Elizabeth spent 20 years building. She stood to leave, then paused. Your parents' accident. October 15th, 2014, 3 weeks after your father refused to invest his tech company pension in one of Gerald's schemes. The brake line failure was ruled accidental, but the mechanic who inspected the car he left town suddenly came into unexpected money. The blood drained from my face. You're saying they murdered my parents. I'm saying your grandmother found evidence that concerned her enough to hire private security for you through college without telling you. I'm saying she spent years building legal protections you don't even know exist. And I'm saying Thursday isn't about a documentary. Then what? Power of attorney, conservatorship, something that gives them control. The documentary is just the pressure point, the public humiliation they'll threaten unless you comply. Patricia placed a business card on the table. My real name is Patricia Volkoff. I'm a federal prosecutor now. Your grandmother's evidence gave me a second chance at justice. When you're ready to fight back, call me. She left me there with the weight of revelations crushing my chest. My parents. My God, my parents. All these years thinking it was tragic fate when it might have been murder. My hands shook as I dialed Stanley Morrison's office. His secretary put me through immediately. Aileen, Stanley's voice was warm but urgent. I've been expecting your call. Can you come by immediately? Yes, Stanley, I need to tell you something. Elizabeth Sparrow has come home to nest. The silence on the other end stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then, I see. Take the service elevator when you arrive. My private office. Tell no one you're coming. I drove to his building in a haze, checking constantly for tails. The service elevator was hidden behind a maintenance door. Stanley was waiting when it opened, his usually jovial face serious. I hoped we'd never need to have this conversation, he said, leading me through a door I'd never noticed before into a smaller, more secure office. But Elizabeth insisted on preparing for every contingency. The room was lined with filing cabinets. A wall safe stood open, revealing stacks of documents. Your grandmother hired me in 2015, right after your parents' death. She suspected but couldn't prove Gerald's involvement, so she began building what she called the fortress. Patricia mentioned protections I don't know about. Stanley nodded, pulling out a thick folder. Your inheritance is structured in ways that make it legally impossible for anyone to access without your explicit, uncoerced consent. Multiple trusts, each with different triggers and protections. Any attempt to force your signature would invalidate all transfers. But they could still come after Nathan's assets. Which is why Elizabeth prepared for that, too. He handed me another folder. A prenuptial agreement, post-dated but legally binding, signed by Nathan himself. What when? 3 years ago, right before your wedding. Nathan came to me worried about protecting you from his family's potential interference. He signed it without telling you, not wanting you to think he was after money you might inherit. He had no idea how much it would be. I stared at Nathan's signature, tears blurring my vision. All this time he'd been trying to protect me, too. There's more. Stanley continued. Security footage from the garage where your parents' car was serviced. Bank records showing payments to the mechanic. GPS data from Gerald's car placing him at the garage that night. Not enough for criminal conviction, perhaps, but enough for leverage. Leverage for what? For this. He placed a final document in front of me. A cease and desist order ready to file. Restraining orders prepared. Criminal complaints documented. One word from you and I can have federal investigators at their door by Thursday. Why didn't my grandmother do this herself? Because she wanted you to have the choice, to have the power. She knew if she acted, they'd just wait and come for you later. This way you control the timing, you control the outcome. My phone rang, Margaret's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. There's one more thing, Stanley said quietly. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name in my grandmother's handwriting. She said to give you this when the sparrows came home. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper, her careful script filling the page. My darling Aileen, if you're reading this, then the wolves have finally shown themselves. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this moment, but I've done my best to prepare you for it. The Brennans took your parents from us. They've taken money, dignity, and hope from dozens of others, but they've never faced a Hartley woman who knew they were coming. Patricia will guide you. Stanley will protect you. But the choice of how to fight is yours alone. Remember, sparrows may be small, but they're fierce protecting their nest. And sometimes the smallest birds bring down the mightiest predators. All my love and faith. Grandma. P.S. Check your jewelry box. The emerald ring has more than sentimental value. I folded the letter carefully, my resolve hardening with each crease. Stanley, I need copies of everything, and I need you to prepare those federal complaints. Not to file yet, but to have ready. What are you planning? I'm going to dinner with my in-laws. I'm going to play the part they expect, and then I'm going to use my grandmother's fortress exactly as she intended. I stood feeling stronger than I had in days. They want my inheritance, let them come for it. They have no idea what Elizabeth Hartley left me. Stanley smiled, the expression sharp with long-awaited satisfaction. Your grandmother would be proud. What do you need from me? Everything. Every document, every piece of evidence, every protection she put in place. And Stanley, see if Judge Harrison is still grateful for that pro bono work you did for his daughter. We might need a friendly court. As I left through the service elevator, I thought about the dinner awaiting me. Margaret and Gerald sitting in their elegant dining room, convinced they held all the cards. Diane with her nervous energy and recording devices. The fake documentary, the planted evidence, the escalating pressure. They thought they were predators and I was prey. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing: even sparrows have talons when their nest is threatened. My phone buzzed with texts from Nathan. Are you okay? Mom's called 3 times. I think something's wrong. Dad came by the job site. Please be careful. I love you. I texted back, on my way home, we need to talk before dinner. Really talk. I love you too. It was time to tell my husband everything. Time to show him the fortress my grandmother built and the army she'd assembled. Time to stop playing defense and start playing to win. The Brennans wanted a war. Elizabeth Hartley had made sure I was ready to give them one. The rain had turned into a thunderstorm by the time I reached home. Nathan's truck was already in the driveway, though it was only 3 in the afternoon. He never left job sites early. I found him in the kitchen pacing like a caged animal. Relief flooded his face when he saw me. Thank God. I've been worried sick. Where were you? We need to talk, I said, glancing meaningfully at the smoke detector where we'd found the bug. But not here. Get your jacket. Understanding flashed in his eyes. We left through the back door, running through the rain to his truck. Once inside, with the engine running and radio playing to mask our voices, I told him everything. Patricia, Stanley, the 18 million, the evidence about my parents, his own actions to protect me. Nathan gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. Your parents. Jesus, Aileen, they killed your parents. We can't prove it in court, but yes, I think they did. And I brought you right to them. His voice cracked. God, I introduced you to murderers. You didn't know. I touched his arm. Nathan, you signed papers to protect me from them 3 years ago. You saw something was wrong even then. Not enough. Not nearly enough. He turned to face me fully. What did Mom say when she called you? I checked my voicemail on speaker. Margaret's voice filled the truck sugary sweet with underlying steel. Aileen, darling, I do hope you're feeling better after yesterday's revelations. Family dinner tonight at 7. We have wonderful news about the documentary. The producers are so excited. Oh, and dear, do bring your financial documents. Gerald has found the most marvelous advisor to help you structure everything properly. Don't be late. Financial advisor, Nathan said flatly. She's not even trying to be subtle anymore. They're panicking, moving faster than they planned. I pulled out the document Stanley had given me. Look at this. I showed him the protection structures, the evidence against his parents, the fortress my grandmother had built. His expression shifted from shock to anger to something harder to read. All these years, he said quietly, I thought they were difficult but harmless. Controlling, sure. Manipulative, definitely. But this, they're monsters. The question is, what do we do about it? Nathan studied the papers his contractors mined, working through structures and strategies. We need them to incriminate themselves, on record, undeniably. The house is bugged. By them. But what if we added our own recording? What if we got them to admit everything in their own home, thinking they were safe? I thought about it. Patricia said to play the part they expect, someone cracking under pressure. So we give them that. You go in looking defeated, overwhelmed. I'll play the confused, angry husband starting to side with them. Get them comfortable. Get them talking. And record everything. Everything. His jaw set with determination. They want to destroy our marriage to get your money. Let's show them what our marriage is really made of. We spent the next hour preparing. Grace arrived at 4 with a bag of electronics recording devices far more sophisticated than anything the Brennans had planted. As a software engineer with a side interest in security, she was in her element. Fiber optic cameras. She explained, showing us devices that look like shirt buttons, burst transmitters that'll send data even through interference, and this beauty a pen that records 8 hours of HD video. Is this legal? Nathan asked. In their own home, where they've already established recording is acceptable gray area but defensible. Grace's expression was grim. After what they tried to pull with me, I want these people buried. By 6:30, we were ready. I wore a conservative dress that made me look younger, more vulnerable. My makeup was deliberately smudged as if I'd been crying. Nathan chose clothes that emphasized his working-class roots. His parents' subtle snobbery would make them underestimate him. You sure about this? He asked as we prepared to leave. No, but I'm angry enough to do it anyway. That's my girl. He kissed me fiercely. Let's go con the con artists. The drive to his parents' estate felt like approaching a battlefield. Lightning split the sky as we pulled up their circular driveway. The house loomed before us, all brick and pretension, a monument to stolen wealth. Margaret answered the door herself, unusual for her. Oh, darlings, you're here. Come in, you're soaked. Her concern seemed genuine until I caught her eyes cataloging my distressed appearance with satisfaction. She thought her plan was working. The dining room was set for 6. My stomach dropped. Who else is joining us? Just Diane and Robert, Gerald said, emerging from his study. Robert Sterling, our financial advisor. He's eager to meet you, Aileen. Robert Sterling. Patricia had mentioned that name. A con artist who helped hide assets. This was worse than we'd thought. Nathan. Gerald continued, clapping his son on the shoulder. You look tired. Hard day at work. You could say that, Nathan replied evenly. Surprising visit from you really threw off the schedule. Yes. Well, I wanted to check on my investment. The emphasis on investment was subtle but clear. Make sure everything was progressing properly. Diane swept in wearing a cocktail dress more suitable for a gala than family dinner. Aileen, how are you holding up, sweetie? Such shocking news yesterday about your little windfall. Little windfall, $3.2 million reduced to pocket change. I forced a weak smile. It's been overwhelming. Of course it has, Margaret cooed, guiding me to my seat. Which is why we've invited Robert. He specializes in sudden wealth syndrome. Is that a real thing? Nathan asked, taking his place beside me. Oh, yes, a smooth voice answered from the doorway. Robert Sterling entered like a leading man making his entrance, silver-haired, expensively suited with the kind of tan that came from other people's money. Quite real. The psychological impact of unexpected wealth can be devastating without proper guidance. He took my hand, holding it a beat too long. You must be Aileen. I've heard so much about you. All good, I hope. I managed pulling my hand back. Mostly, he said with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Though I understand there have been some trust issues regarding financial transparency. The trap was so obvious I almost admired it. They'd brought in a professional to make their theft look legitimate. Now then, Gerald said once we were seated. Before we eat, perhaps we should address the elephant in the room. Aileen, did you bring the documents we discussed? I didn't think that was appropriate for dinner. Nonsense, Margaret chirped. We're family. Financial planning is just another form of caring for each other. Speaking of family, Robert interjected smoothly, I've prepared some preliminary structures that would protect everyone's interests. Joint trusts, managed accounts, investment vehicles that ensure family unity. He produced a leather folder spreading documents across the table like a card dealer. The papers were dense with legal language, but certain phrases jumped out. Irrevocable transfer, designated family management, permanent allocation of assets. This is complicated, I said, playing up confusion. That's why you have us, Gerald said warmly, to handle these complex matters. All you need to do is sign. Tonight. Nathan's surprise was perfectly pitched. Shouldn't we have lawyers review this? Lawyers. Diane laughed. Nathan, sweetie, Robert is a lawyer, the best in the business. Former lawyer, Robert corrected modestly. Now I focus on wealth preservation, and time is of the essence. The documentary crew arrives Thursday. We need everything structured properly before then. About this documentary, I ventured, I'm still not clear on why our finances matter to a film. Margaret and Gerald exchanged glances. Well, darling, Margaret began, it's not just any documentary, it's specifically about wealth in modern America, how families navigate sudden fortune. The producers feel the Brennan family story, including your inheritance, perfectly illustrates their thesis, which is, that money without family wisdom leads to ruin, Gerald said solemnly. They've documented dozens of lottery winners, tech millionaires, inheritors who lost everything because they didn't have proper guidance. But with family support, Robert added, wealth becomes legacy. That's what we're offering here. A chance to be a positive example instead of a cautionary tale. The manipulation was masterful. Threats wrapped in concern theft disguised as protection. I let my shoulders slump, playing the overwhelmed inheritor perfectly. It's just so much, I whispered. I don't know what to do. Of course you don't, Margaret soothed, reaching over to pat my hand. That's why we're here, to take care of everything. Mom, Nathan said slowly, this feels rushed. Why can't this wait until after the documentary? Gerald's face hardened slightly. Because, son, the documentary is the deadline. They need to see unified family finances. Otherwise, they'll focus on the negative secrets division, the kind of scandal that could destroy reputations. Whose reputations? Nathan pressed. All of ours, Diane said quickly. The Brennan name means something in this community. In your business, Nathan. Imagine if clients thought you couldn't even manage your own wife's honesty. The threat was elegant. Comply or watch them destroy Nathan's business with innuendo and gossip. I need some air, I said, standing unsteadily. Of course, Margaret said. Diane, why don't you go with her? No, Nathan said firmly. I'll go. We stepped onto their covered patio, rain drumming on the roof. Nathan pulled me close, whispering directly in my ear. They're getting desperate. That Sterling guy is sweating. He was right. For all his smooth talk, Robert had been checking his phone repeatedly, anxiety bleeding through his polished facade. 5 more minutes, I whispered back. Then we dropped the bomb. We returned to find them huddled in conversation that stopped abruptly. The documents were rearranged, new pages added. "Feeling better?" Gerald asked. "Actually, yes." I sat straighter, letting steel creep into my voice. Clear air helps with clarity. "Wonderful," Robert said quickly. "So shall we proceed with signatures?" "I have a question first," I said, "about the Hartley group." The room went still. Margaret's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "The Hartley group." Gerald's voice was carefully neutral. "My grandmother's investment firm, the one she used to investigate financial crimes." I smiled pleasantly. "Surely you remember Gerald, from 1998. Color drained from his face. "I don't know what you mean." "No, Patricia Volkoff remembers. She remembers $2.8 million. She remembers forged documents. She remembers everything." "Who's Patricia Volkoff?" Diane asked, but her parents' expressions told her enough. "Just someone your father used to know," I said conversationally. "Someone who's now a federal prosecutor. Funny how life works out." Robert Sterling was already standing. "I think I should go." "Sit down," Nathan commanded with such force that Robert dropped back into his chair. "Nobody's going anywhere until we finish this conversation." "What conversation?" Margaret's voice had gone shrill. "What lies has this woman been telling you?" "Lies." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos Patricia had shared. Like these documents showing embezzlement. These bank records. This evidence my grandmother spent 20 years collecting. "You're bluffing," Gerald said, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "Am I? Should we discuss October 15th, 2014, the mechanic who serviced my parents' car, the brake lines that just happened to fail? That was an accident." The words exploded from Margaret before she could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the rain seemed to pause. "How would you know that?" I asked quietly. "Unless you were involved." "I think," Robert Sterling said, standing again, "I really need to leave." "You leave when we say you leave," Nathan growled. "And right now you're going to explain exactly what my parents hired you to do." "I don't know what—" "The papers Sterling. The ones that would give them control of my wife's inheritance. The ones designed to look like estate planning but actually transfer ownership." Nathan's voice was deadly calm. "Explain. Now." Robert looked between Gerald and Nathan, calculating odds. Then his shoulders slumped. It was supposed to be simple. Structure the assets so the family managed them. Standard practice for protecting wealth. Protecting it from who, I asked? From poor decisions, impulsive spending, divorce. Or from the rightful owner deciding not to share with thieves and murderers. "Now see here," Gerald started, but I cut him off. "No, you see here." I stood pulling out the recording pen Grace had given me and setting it prominently on the table. "Everything you've said tonight has been recorded. Everything you've done has been documented. And everything you've planned has been prevented." "Recording us in our own home," Margaret sputtered. "That's illegal. Unlike planting bugs in our car, unlike hiring fake private investigators, unlike attempting to defraud me of my inheritance, I pulled out more documents, restraining orders ready to file, criminal complaints ready to submit, 20 years of evidence ready to present." Diane had gone pale. "Mom, Dad, what is she talking about?" "Shut up, Diane." Gerald snapped, then turned to me. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" I pretended to consider. "I want my parents back, but since you took that from me, I'll settle for justice." "You can't prove anything," he said desperately. "Can I? Patricia Volkoff thinks otherwise. So does the FBI. Oh, didn't I mention she's been building a RICO case, racketeering fraud conspiracy. Your financial advisor here just added money laundering to the list." Robert Sterling made a break for the door. Nathan clotheslined him without standing up, sending him sprawling. "Stay put," Nathan advised mildly. "My wife's not done." "Here's what's going to happen," I announced. "You're going to cancel this fictional documentary. You're going to remove every surveillance device from our property. You're going to forgive every loan Nathan owes, and you're going to stay away from us forever." "You can't dictate terms to us," Gerald blustered. "No." "Then let me be clearer." I leaned forward. "Option 1, you comply, and this ends quietly. Option 2, I file everything. Criminal charges, civil suits, media exposure. Your choice." "They'll never stick," Margaret said, but her voice shook. "Maybe not all of them, but some will. And even if you beat every charge, the trials will destroy you. Your reputation, your finances, your freedom all gone, while lawyers feast on whatever's left." "Please," Diane whispered, tears streaming. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this." I studied my sister-in-law. The nervous energy, the constant touching of jewelry, not excitement, but fear. She'd been terrified of her parents her whole life. "I believe you," I said finally, "which is why you get a different choice. Cooperate with authorities, testify truthfully, and build your own life away from them." "Diane, don't you dare," Margaret started. "Shut up, Mother!" Diane screamed, years of suppression exploding. "Just shut up! You killed people, you steal and lie and pretend we're this perfect family. I'm done." She turned to me. "I'll tell them everything. The books, the offshore accounts, the other families you've done this to. Everything." Gerald lunged for his daughter, but Nathan was faster, pinning his father against the wall. "Touch her and I'll break your arm." "My own son," Gerald wheezed. "I'm not your son. I never was. I was just another asset to leverage." Nathan's voice broke. "But that ends tonight." Margaret stood slowly, decades of carefully maintained composure cracking. "You have no idea what you're doing. The people we're connected to, the power we have," had I corrected. Past tense. "Your connections will evaporate once Patricia's investigation goes public. Your power was always stolen, and your time is up." I gathered the documents Robert had brought, adding them to our evidence. "Nathan, call the police. Mr. Sterling seems to have outstanding warrants." "You bitch," Robert spat. "Yes," I agreed pleasantly. "A bitch with $18 million and an FBI prosecutor on speed dial. Remember that while you're sitting in federal prison." As sirens wailed in the distance, I looked at the ruins of the Brennan family empire. Margaret sobbing in her chair, Gerald still pinned by his son, defeat etched in every line. Diane huddled with Grace's recording equipment, already documenting evidence, and Robert Sterling contemplating his life choices. "One more thing," I said, pulling out the emerald ring my grandmother had left me. Under the stone was a tiny USB drive. "Everything I've shown you, it's just the beginning. Grandma documented 30 years of your crimes. Names, dates, amounts, methods, all waiting for Patricia's team." The doorbell rang, police responding to Nathan's call. "You destroyed my family," Gerald said brokenly. "No," I replied, thinking of my parents, of all his victims. "You destroyed your family the moment you chose greed over humanity. I just held up the mirror." As the police took Robert away and began taking statements, Nathan wrapped his arms around me. We stood in the wreckage of his childhood home, rain pounding against windows, truth finally drowning out the lies. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for all of it." "Don't be, we survived them, together." "What now?" I looked at Diane giving her statement to an officer, at the documents that would reshape dozens of lives, at the man I loved who'd chosen right over blood. Now we build the life they tried to steal, and we make sure they never hurt anyone again. The fortress my grandmother built hadn't just protected me, it had given me the power to protect others. The sparrow had indeed come home to nest, and the predators never saw the talons coming. Tuesday morning dawned clear, the storm having washed the city clean. Nathan and I sat at our kitchen table surrounded by documents and cold coffee processing the previous night's implosion. The house felt different. Without the surveillance devices, we'd removed them all after returning home, no longer caring if the Brennans knew we'd found them. "I can't believe it's over," Nathan said, rubbing his exhausted eyes. "It's not," I warned, reviewing Patricia's latest email. "Your parents are cornered animals now. That makes them dangerous." As if summoned by my words, Nathan's phone rang. His foreman, Mike. "Boss, we got a problem. City inspector's here saying our permits are invalid. Wants to shut down the whole site." Nathan went rigid. What, those permits were approved months ago? That's what I told him, but he's got paperwork saying they were fraudulently obtained. Nathan, he's threatening criminal charges. My husband was already grabbing his keys. "Stall him. I'm on my way." "This is your father," I said. It wasn't a question. "Has to be. Those permits were completely legitimate." He paused at the door. "Will you be okay alone?" After he left, I dialed Patricia's number. She answered on the second ring. "I was expecting this," she said grimly. "Gerald has connections throughout city government. He's trying to destroy Nathan's business as leverage." "Can we stop it?" "I'm already making calls. But Aileen, there's something else. My sources say Gerald met with James Whitfield again this morning." "The divorce attorney?" "Yes, and this time he brought documents, signed documents." My blood chilled. "Signed by who?" "That's what I'm trying to find out. Can you access Nathan's home office? Check if anything's missing." I hurried to Nathan's office, my heart sinking as I found the usually organized space in subtle disarray. Someone had been here, careful, but not perfect. I searched through files looking for what might be missing. Then I found it, or rather didn't find it. Nathan's business incorporation papers, his contracts, his bank statements, all gone. "Patricia," I said, phone cradled against my shoulder. "They took everything related to his business." "Damn. They're going to claim he's been embezzling from his own company, hiding assets from you, building a case that he married you for money he thought you'd inherit someday." "That's insane. Nathan didn't even know about the inheritance." "Doesn't matter. They'll forge what they need, twist what they can't forge. Aileen, you need to..." The doorbell interrupted. Through the peephole, I saw a courier. "Delivery for Aileen Brennan. Requires signature." I signed for the thick envelope, already dreading its contents. Inside were divorce papers, filed by Nathan that morning according to the timestamp, citing irreconcilable differences and financial fraud. "This can't be real," I whispered. "What is it?" Patricia demanded. "Divorce papers, supposedly from Nathan, but he was with me this morning. He couldn't have..." "Electronic filing," Patricia said grimly. "All it takes is a password and a digital signature. What time does it show?" 7:43 a.m. "When did Nathan leave?" 8:15. My hands shook. "They filed it while he was still home, while we were having coffee together." "They're not just trying to destroy his business, they're trying to destroy your marriage legally before you can respond. Aileen, don't sign anything, don't respond. Wait for Nathan to..." The front door burst open. Nathan stood there, face flushed with anger. "They shut it down," he said. "The whole job site. 3 months of work gone. Mike said..." He stopped seeing my face. "What's wrong?" I wordlessly handed him the papers, watched the color drain from his face as he read. "This isn't... I didn't..." He looked up at me, horror in his eyes. "Aileen, I swear to God I didn't file these." "I know." I took his hand. "Your parents did, electronically, this morning while you were still here." "They have my passwords." Then understanding dawned. "The laptop. Dad borrowed my laptop last month when his crashed. Said it was for an hour, but he had it overnight." "They've been planning this for months," Patricia said through the speaker. "Maybe longer. Nathan, check your email, specifically your sent folder." Nathan pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically. His expression grew darker with each swipe. "Emails to Whitfield I never sent. Documents I never attached. Christ, there's a whole correspondence here about hiding assets, protecting myself from my gold-digging wife. His voice cracked. They've created an entire false narrative. There's more, I said quietly. Your business papers are missing. They're going to claim you've been embezzling. From my own company, to hide money from me, to protect assets in the divorce you've supposedly been planning. Nathan sank into a chair. My God, they're not just trying to steal your inheritance. They're trying to destroy me to get it. Destroying you is how they get it, Patricia explained. If you're facing criminal charges, if your business is ruined, if you're painted as a fraud who tricked Aileen, she'd get everything in a divorce. And a vulnerable, betrayed woman might be convinced to let family help manage her fortune. Except I'm not getting divorced, I stated firmly. They'll try to force it. Aileen, I need you both to come to my office immediately. Bring everything, documents, recordings, all of it. We need to file injunctions before... The doorbell rang again. This time it was 2 police officers. Nathan Brennan. We need you to come with us for questioning regarding fraudulent building permits and suspected embezzlement. Don't say anything, Patricia commanded. Not one word except to request your attorney. I'll meet you at the station. Nathan looked at me as they cuffed him. I love you. We'll fix this. I know. I love you too. As they led him away, my phone rang. Margaret. Such unfortunate timing, she cooed. Your poor husband arrested like a common criminal, though I suppose that's what he is, isn't it? What do you want, Margaret? Just to help, dear. This must be so overwhelming. Financial betrayal from the one person you trusted. Gerald and I want you to know we don't blame you for Nathan's crimes. Nathan hasn't committed any crimes. Oh, darling, the evidence suggests otherwise. All those hidden debts, the forged permits, the embezzlement. And now we're discovering he's been planning to divorce you all along, taking meetings with attorneys, gathering your financial information. All of which you fabricated. Can you prove that, more importantly, can Nathan prove that from a jail cell? I gripped the phone so hard it creaked. Just say what you want. Come to tea. Just you and me, mother to daughter. Let's discuss how to minimize the damage to everyone. And if I refuse, then Nathan's arrest becomes very public. His clients learn their contractor is a fraud. The news covers the scandal of a husband plotting against his heiress wife. Such stories have a way of taking on lives of their own. I thought of Nathan in handcuffs, of his business crumbling, of the life we'd built being systematically destroyed. Now, the Wilshire Club, I have a private room reserved. I'll be there in an hour. 45 minutes, dear. Oh, and Aileen, come alone. No prosecutors, no recordings. Just family. She hung up. I immediately called Patricia back, filling her in. It's a trap, Patricia said. Of course it is, but I need to know what they're planning. You're walking into the lion's den. No, I corrected, thinking of my grandmother's letter. A sparrow is entering the hawk's nest, and this sparrow has talons they haven't seen yet. I dressed carefully, professional, but not intimidating, wearing the recording devices Grace had given us as jewelry. The emerald ring with its hidden USB went on my right hand, a reminder of the ammunition I carried. The Wilshire Club was old money pretending to be older, all dark wood and whispered conversations. Margaret waited in a private dining room, looking every inch the society matron. Aileen, you came. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice, dear. Please sit. Tea was already served Earl Grey in china, so delicate it was almost transparent. Margaret poured with practiced elegance. I want you to know, she began, that none of this was personal. You're actually quite lovely. Under different circumstances, I might have genuinely welcomed you to the family. But I had the audacity to inherit money. No, dear. You had the audacity to hide it. Marriage is about trust, transparency. By keeping secrets, you created this situation. I kept a secret for 3 weeks while processing grief. You've been keeping secrets for 30 years. Margaret's smile tightened. Ancient history. We're discussing the present, Nathan's present specifically. She produced a tablet, swiping to a news article draft. Contractor arrested for fraud, wife's millions may be motive. Below were photos of Nathan being led away in handcuffs. This can be published within the hour, Margaret said, or it can disappear forever. In exchange for cooperation, the documentary was one option, but recent events have created complications. We need a cleaner solution. Another swipe revealed legal documents. Power of attorney, temporary of course, just until this mess with Nathan is resolved. Gerald has connections who can make his charges disappear, restore his permits, even improve his business prospects. All you have to do is allow us to safeguard your inheritance during this turbulent time. Safeguard, that's what you call theft now. Such an ugly word. We prefer management. Your millions would be invested properly, generating returns for everyone. You and Nathan could live comfortably on the proceeds. His business would thrive with our backing. Everyone wins. Except the dozens of other families you've destroyed. Margaret's mask finally slipped, revealing the predator beneath. Those families were weak. They lacked vision, connections, the will to survive in this world. We simply redistributed resources to those better equipped to use them. Like my parents, were they weak too? Your parents were obstacles, just as you're being an obstacle now. She leaned forward. But obstacles can be removed, Aileen, one way or another. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. Nathan is in custody. His business is suspended. His reputation hangs by a thread. You can save him with a signature, or you can watch everything he's built crumble while you cling to money that won't keep you warm at night. I sipped my tea, buying time while fury built in my chest. You really think you've won, don't you? Haven't we? Your husband is in jail. Your privacy is shattered. Your choices have narrowed to submission or destruction. She smiled coldly. Even your grandmother, clever as she was, couldn't protect you from this moment. My grandmother, I said slowly, knew exactly what this moment would look like. She planned for it, prepared for it, just like she prepared for what happened to my parents. Something flickered in Margaret's eyes. As I said, ancient history. Is it because I have a mechanic willing to testify about who paid him to cut those brake lines? I have bank records showing the payment came from an account connected to Gerald's firm. I have surveillance footage from that night. Impossible. That was... She caught herself, but too late. That was what Margaret, too, long ago, too carefully covered up. I pulled out my phone, showing her a grainy security photo Patricia had sent. October 15th, 2014. Your car in the background at the service station. You weren't even smart enough to stay away. That proves nothing. By itself, maybe not, but combined with Diane's testimony about conversations she overheard with Patricia's documentation of your patterns, with the FBI's newfound interest in your activities, I smiled. It proves enough. Margaret's composure cracked completely. What do you want? Justice. But I'll settle for Nathan's immediate release, all charges dropped, his permits restored, and your complete disappearance from our lives. Or I give Patricia everything, not just the financial crimes, everything. My parents' murder, the other families you've destroyed, every dirty secret Diane is currently spilling to federal agents. Diane wouldn't dare. Diane's been recording you for years. Did you know that your own daughter's so terrified of becoming like you that she documented everything as insurance? I stood. You have 1 hour to make Nathan's problems disappear. 1 hour before I unleash 30 years of evidence. You're bluffing. I placed the USB drive from my grandmother's ring on the table. Backup number 12 of 30, each one hidden somewhere you'll never find, each one containing enough evidence to bury you. 1 hour, Margaret. I left her there staring at the USB like it was a live grenade, which in a way it was. Outside, my phone immediately rang. Grace. Got it all, she said triumphantly. Every word, every threat, every admission. The magic of modern technology. Send copies to Patricia immediately, and Grace, thank you. Thank me by being safe. That woman looked ready to murder you herself. She's not the first to try, I said, thinking of my parents. She won't be the last to fail. 40 minutes later, as I paced Patricia's office, her phone rang. She listened, smiled, and hung up. Nathan's being released, all charges dropped, permits mysteriously reinstated. Apparently, it was all a clerical error. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit. It's over. This round. But Aileen, they'll regroup. People like the Brennans don't just disappear. Then we make them. How long before you can file federal charges? With Diane's cooperation and your evidence, days, not weeks. But are you prepared for what comes next? Trials media attention. The complete destruction of Nathan's family. I thought about Nathan in handcuffs, about my parents' brake lines, about all the families destroyed by greed. I'm prepared. My grandmother spent 20 years preparing me for exactly this. 2 hours later, Nathan walked out of the police station into my arms. He held me like a drowning man clutching shore. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. Never. We're in this together, remember. My parents are finished, one way or another. He pulled back to study my face. What did you do? What Grandma taught me. I protected my nest. That evening, as we sat in our bug-free home planning our next moves with Patricia and Grace, my phone chimed. Unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Blood is blood, and Nathan will choose blood eventually. They always do. I showed Nathan the message. He took my phone, typed a response. I choose my wife. I choose truth. I choose the family we'll build over the one I was born into. And if you come near us again, you'll learn what real family loyalty looks like. He hit send, then blocked the number. No more. No more manipulation, no more threats, no more toxicity disguised as love. I kissed him, tasting freedom and fury and future all at once. The betrayal had been theirs, not ours. And now, finally, we could build something real from the ashes of their empire. Wednesday morning arrived with Grace at our doorstep, laptop bag slung over her shoulder and a grim determination in her eyes. I've been up all night, she announced, pushing past me into the house. You need to see what I found. Nathan emerged from the kitchen with coffee, which Grace grabbed gratefully. We gathered around the dining room table as she opened her laptop. After yesterday's drama, I did some deep diving into the fake PI who approached me, Mark Chapman or Marcus Chen or whoever he really is. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. He's connected to a whole network of fixers the Brennans have used over the years. She pulled up a complex web diagram showing connections between names, dates, and incidents. This goes way deeper than just your family, Aileen. They're part of something bigger. How much bigger? Nathan asked. At least 6 other wealthy families in the state. Similar patterns, sudden tragedies, contested inheritances, family members who signed away fortunes under duress. She clicked on a node. Evelyn Morrison, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune. Parents died in a boating accident, signed power of attorney to family friends the Brennans introduced her to. She lost everything within a year. Where is she now? I asked. Psychiatric facility, has been for 3 years, supposedly had a breakdown after losing her fortune, but Grace pulled up medical records. The facility is owned by a shell company. Guess who's on the board? Robert Sterling, Nathan breathed. Bingo. She's been kept drugged and discredited while they drain what's left of her trust fund for medical expenses. My hands clenched. We have to help her. Already on it. Patricia has a judge ready to order an independent evaluation. Grace switched screens. But here's what's really interesting. Your fake PI, he made a mistake. She pulled up audio files. Remember I told you I recorded him? Well, he tried to bribe me multiple times, and one time he got sloppy. She hit play. Mark Chapman's smooth voice filled the room, making his pitch about the $10,000. But in the background, barely audible, was another voice. That's Gerald, Nathan said, sitting straighter. That's my father in the background. Grace smiled grimly. Voice analysis confirms it. Your father was present during at least one attempted bribe. That makes him directly liable for witness tampering. My phone buzzed, Stanley Morrison calling. Aileen, can you come to my office immediately? I've discovered something in your grandmother's files you need to see. We're on our way, I said, already standing. An hour later, we sat in Stanley's secure office as he spread documents across his conference table. Elizabeth left instructions that if certain conditions were met, specifically if the Brennans made direct moves against you, I was to open this section of her files. He handed me a thick folder. Inside were photographs, documents, correspondence dating back 40 years. Your grandmother didn't just investigate after your parents' death, Stanley explained. She'd been watching the Brennans since before you were born. I stared at a photograph of my mother, young and vibrant, standing next to Margaret Brennan at what looked like a charity function. They knew each other. Your mother was Margaret's college roommate, best friends for years until your mother discovered Margaret had been stealing from their sorority's charity fund. Stanley pointed to another document. Your mother reported it to the dean. Margaret was nearly expelled. So this is revenge, Nathan asked, incredulous. A 40-year grudge? Partly. But it became more when your mother married into money. The Hartley construction fortune was significant, and Margaret never forgave being cut off from that social circle. Stanley showed us more documents. She tried several times to reconcile, always with business propositions that would have given the Brennans access to Hartley assets. My parents always refused, I said, seeing the pattern. Until Gerald made his final offer in 2014, a partnership that would have merged your father's tech company with one of Gerald's shells. Your parents saw through it, threatened to expose their previous schemes. So they killed them. The words tasted like ash. Elizabeth believed so. She spent years gathering evidence, but also protecting you. Did you never wonder why you got that scholarship to a college 3 states away? Why certain job offers came your way? Your grandmother was always guiding you, keeping you safe while she built her case. Grace's laptop chimed. Patricia's here. She says it's urgent. We buzzed her in. The federal prosecutor's usually composed face showed cracks of exhaustion and something else, excitement. Diane's been talking, she announced without preamble, for 14 hours straight. What she's revealed... Patricia shook her head. We're going to need a bigger task force. She pulled out her own laptop, connecting it to Stanley's conference room screen. The Brennans aren't just con artists. They're serial killers who use financial fraud as their weapon. The screen filled with a timeline, names, dates, death certificates. 17 confirmed victims over 30 years, all wealthy, all connected to the Brennans socially or professionally. All died in accidents, after refusing business propositions or discovering their schemes. My legs went weak. Nathan guided me to a chair. 17, he whispered, that we can prove. Diane has receipts, recordings, even videos of her parents discussing solutions to problem people. Patricia clicked to another screen. She's been building her own insurance policy since she was 16 and overheard them planning a yacht accident for a business partner. Where are Gerald and Margaret now? Stanley asked. Under surveillance. They don't know how much we have yet. I want them to feel safe, maybe make more mistakes. Patricia turned to me. But I need your help for the next phase. Anything. The documentary crew, they're real. I've been in contact with them. They had no idea they were being used as leverage. In fact, they're horrified and want to help. They're proposing something unusual. Grace leaned forward. What kind of unusual... They want to continue with the documentary, but as an expose. Hidden cameras recorded conversations catching the Brennans in their own words, with you as the bait. Absolutely not, Nathan said immediately. Hear me out. We'd have full surveillance federal agents as crew members. The Brennans still think they have leverage, still think they can salvage this. If they believe the documentary is moving forward, they'll try to use it to rehabilitate their image, I finished, or make one last play for the money. Exactly. and will be recording everything. I looked at the wall of evidence. 17 victims, my parents among them. All those lives destroyed for greed. When? Tomorrow, the original timeline. They're expecting you to crumble to come begging for Nathan's freedom, which they don't know he already has. Let them think their plan is working. This is insane, Nathan protested. You're asking her to walk back into danger. I'm asking her to help us end this, Patricia corrected. With the evidence we gather, we can put them away for life. Multiple life sentences. I'll do it, I decided. But only if Nathan's there too. They need to believe we're both broken, both desperate. Patricia nodded. Can you sell that performance? Nathan took my hand. To put my parents away for what they've done, I could win an Oscar. We spent the rest of the day preparing. Grace fitted us with new recording devices invisible even to professional detection. Patricia coached us on what to say, how to act, what to watch for. Stanley provided documents that looked real but gave away nothing. That evening, as Nathan and I rehearsed our defeated couple act, Diane called me directly. Aileen, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. What is it, Diane? I need you to know something before tomorrow. Something I haven't told the FBI yet because I need to tell you first. My chest tightened. Go on. The night your parents died, I was there. Not at the accident, but at the house when Mom and Dad came home. They were supposed to be at the theater, but they came back early. Their clothes were different and Mom was crying. I gripped the phone tighter. What did you hear? Dad kept saying it was necessary, that they'd left no choice. Mom said she could still hear the sound. The sound of... Diane's voice broke. Of the car hitting the guardrail. They followed your parents, Aileen. They watched them die. Rage flooded through me so intense I couldn't speak. I was 14. Diane continued through tears. I was terrified. I convinced myself I'd misunderstood, that it was a nightmare, but I knew. Deep down, I always knew. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was too scared to speak up. Tomorrow, I managed to say. Tomorrow you'll have the chance to make it right. I'll tell them everything, every detail, I swear. After she hung up, Nathan held me while I shook with fury and grief. We're going to destroy them, he said quietly. Completely and utterly destroy them. It won't bring my parents back. No, but it'll stop them from taking anyone else's, and maybe that's the best justice we can get. That night, I dreamed of my parents. They were young, laughing at something my grandmother had said. The scene shifted, and I was showing them my wedding photos, introducing them to Nathan. They smiled and said they were proud of me, that I'd chosen well. I woke with tears on my face and Nathan's arms around me. Today we would walk into the wolves' den one last time, but this time we weren't sheep. We were hunters armed with truth and backed by the law. The Brennans thought they were predators. They were about to learn what it meant to be prey. Thursday arrived with clear skies and a sense of destiny as we drove to the Brennan estate for what would be the last time I touched my grandmother's emerald ring. Ready? Nathan asked. I've been ready for 30 years, I replied. I just didn't know it until now. The gates of the estate loomed before us. Behind them waited Gerald and Margaret, confident in their victory. They had no idea that their empire was about to crumble, that their victims were about to have voices, that justice was finally coming home. We parked and walked hand in hand toward the front door. The documentary crew's van was already there, cameras being unloaded. But hidden among the legitimate crew were federal agents, their own cameras recording everything. Margaret opened the door, her smile triumphant. Aileen, Nathan, so glad you could make it. Shall we begin? Yes, I said, matching her smile. Let's begin the end. She didn't catch the meaning, too drunk on her assumed victory to notice the steel in my voice. As we entered their home for the last time, I thought of my parents, of Elizabeth, of all the families destroyed by greed. Today, the Sparrows would finally bring down the Hawks. The Brennan living room had been transformed into a makeshift studio. Professional lights created pools of brightness against shadows, cameras positioned at multiple angles, and crew members bustled with practiced efficiency. What Margaret and Gerald didn't know was that half of them were federal agents. "Isn't this exciting?" Margaret gushed, guiding us to a cream-colored sofa. "The producers are thrilled you've agreed to participate after all." She wore designer clothing and perfect makeup, every inch the society matron. Gerald sat in his leather wingback chair, the picture of patriarchal authority. They'd staged themselves as the concerned parents, ready to guide their wayward children. "Now then," the director said, stepping forward. I recognized him from Patricia's briefing, Agent Sarah Chen, undercover. "We'll start with some establishing shots, then move into the family discussion about financial planning and trust." "Perfect," Gerald said, smoothing his tie. "We have so much wisdom to share about maintaining family unity through financial challenges." Nathan's hand found mine on the sofa. To observers, we looked like a defeated couple seeking guidance. In reality, we were two people about to detonate 30 years of lies. "Let's begin with you, Mr. Brennan." Sarah said, cameras rolling. "Tell us about your philosophy on family wealth." Gerald launched into a practice speech about stewardship and responsibility. I watched him perform this man who'd murdered my parents, who destroyed dozens of lives preaching about moral obligation. "And when family members hide assets," Sarah prompted, "how does that affect trust?" "Devastating." Margaret interjected, her eyes finding mine. "Secrets in marriage, especially financial ones, can destroy everything. That's why we've always counseled transparency." "Is that why you put recording devices in our home?" I asked quietly. The room stilled. Gerald's smile flickered but held. "I'm not sure what you mean, dear." "The cameras, the microphones, the GPS trackers." I kept my voice level, confused rather than accusatory. "Nathan found them yesterday. We assumed they were part of the documentary preparation." Sarah, playing her role perfectly, turned to her crew with concern. "Did anyone authorize surveillance equipment?" A chorus of no's rippled through the legitimate crew members. The agent stayed silent, letting confusion build. "There must be some mistake," Gerald said smoothly. "We would never—" "But you did," Nathan interrupted, pulling out his phone. "I have pictures. Professional surveillance equipment installed weeks before any documentary was mentioned." Sarah turned the cameras more fully on Gerald. "Mr. Brennan, can you explain this?" There's clearly been a misunderstanding. Perhaps someone was overzealous about security, like the someone who hired Mark Chapman to bribe my friend." I added, still maintaining that confused tone. "He said he was with the documentary, but the producers say they've never heard of him." Margaret's composure cracked slightly. "These accusations are ridiculous. We're trying to help you, and this is how you respond." "Help us," Nathan laughed bitterly. "Like you helped Patricia Volkov." The name landed like a bomb. Gerald went rigid. "Who?" Margaret attempted, but her voice wavered. "Your former business partner," Nathan continued. "The one you embezzled $2.8 million from in 1998. She sends her regards, by the way." "I don't know what game you're playing." "It's not a game," I said, finally letting steel enter my voice. "It's justice. Long overdue justice for everyone you've destroyed." Sarah stepped back, letting events unfold while the cameras captured everything. The other agents shifted positions, subtly ready if needed. "We should stop filming," Gerald commanded, standing. "Oh, I don't think so," Sarah replied, dropping her director persona. "I'm Agent Chen, FBI. These cameras stay rolling." Margaret gasped. "FBI, this is entrapment." "This is consequence," I corrected. "Did you think you could murder my parents and face no repercussions?" "We didn't—" "October 15th, 2014. I recited. "You followed them to the mountain road. You watched their car go over. Diane heard you discussing it afterward." "Diane's disturbed," Gerald said desperately. "She's always made up stories." "Stories backed by evidence," Nathan added. "She's been recording you for 20 years. Every threat, every plan, every crime." The elderly couple looked at each other, decades of shared secrets passing silently between them. Then Margaret straightened the mask, dropping entirely. You can't prove anything, she said coldly. We've been too careful. Have you... Sarah pulled out a tablet. Let me read you some of your own words, Mrs. Brennan. From Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. The Morrison woman won't be a problem much longer. Robert has arranged for her medication to be adjusted. A few months of the wrong dosage and she'll be completely discredited. Margaret's face drained of color. Or this one, Sarah continued. From December 3rd, 2014, the brake lines worked perfectly. Clean, no evidence, just like we planned. Those recordings are illegal, Gerald blustered. Made by your daughter in her own home where she lived as a minor, Sarah countered. Perfectly admissible, as is the testimony she's currently giving to a grand jury. Our own daughter, Margaret whispered. She betrayed us. You betrayed her the moment you made her an accomplice to murder through her silence. I shot back. A 14-year-old girl terrified of her own parents. We gave her everything. You gave her trauma and complicity in crimes she was too young to process. You made her hate herself for decades. Nathan's voice was raw. Just like you tried to make me complicit by involving me in your schemes. You ungrateful... Gerald started toward his son, but two agents stepped forward. Mr. Brennan, I'd advise you to sit down, Sarah said calmly. Any aggressive moves will add charges to an already substantial list. Charges. Margaret laughed high and unhinged. You think we'll just roll over. We have connections, lawyers, judges who owe us, all of whom are being investigated as we speak, Sarah informed her. Your network is crumbling. Robert Sterling gave us names in exchange for a deal. Judge Morrison is already in custody. Your bought city officials are racing to confess first for leniency. The reality finally penetrated. Gerald sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 72 years. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, he muttered. We were building something, a legacy, built on blood, I said quietly. My parents' blood, 17 other victims' blood. They were weak. Margaret spat, her genteel facade completely gone. They had resources they didn't deserve, couldn't properly utilize. We simply redistributed. You murdered them. Nathan cut her off. Call it what it is. You're serial killers who used money as your weapon. Your grandmother, Gerald said suddenly, focusing on me. Elizabeth knew. She always knew. She suspected. Then she investigated. Then she prepared. I touched the emerald ring. 20 years of preparation for this moment. Clever bitch, Margaret snarled, playing the sweet old lady while plotting against us. Protecting her granddaughter from killers isn't plotting, Sarah observed. It's justice. Justice. Gerald laughed bitterly. You want to talk about justice? What about our son? You've turned him against us, destroyed our family. You destroyed our family the day you decided murder was acceptable for profit, Nathan replied steadily. I'm just choosing truth over blood. You'll regret this, Margaret warned. When we're gone, when you have no one... He has me, I interrupted. He has the family we choose, not the one he was cursed with. He has friends who won't betray him, a business built honestly, a life without blood on his hands. And you. Gerald turned his venom on me. You think you've won your precious inheritance will be tied up in lawsuits for years. Legal fees will drain it dry. You'll end up with nothing. I've already won, I said simply. My parents' killers will face justice. Future victims are saved. The money. I shrugged. Grandma left me something worth more than millions. She left me the truth and the tools to reveal it. Sarah stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, financial fraud, racketeering, and numerous other charges that will be detailed at your arraignment. As agents moved in with handcuffs, Margaret made one last desperate play. Nathan, please, we're your parents. Whatever mistakes we made, we love you. Nathan stood looking down at the people who'd raised him, used him, nearly destroyed him. No, love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't murder. Love doesn't treat family as assets to leverage. You don't even know what love means. Please, Gerald begged as the cuffs clicked. Don't let them do this. I'm not letting them do anything, Nathan said firmly. I'm choosing justice over complicity, truth over comfortable lies, my wife and our future over your poisoned legacy. As the agents led them out, Margaret turned back one final time. You'll be alone, she hissed at Nathan. Blood is all that matters in the end. Then I guess I'll have to make new blood, Nathan replied calmly, with someone who actually knows how to love. The house fell silent after they left. The real documentary crew began packing up while agents collected evidence. Nathan and I stood in the room where he'd grown up, where he'd learned to walk, where his parents had systematically corrupted every pure thing. You okay? I asked softly. I should feel something, he said, looking around. Guilt, loss, regret, but all I feel is free. Is that wrong? They forfeited their right to your grief when they chose murder over morality, Sarah said, joining us. What you feel is normal for children of criminals who finally see justice. What happens now? Nathan asked. Trials, media coverage, probably years of legal proceedings. Sarah's expression softened. But also healing, building the life they tried to steal, becoming the people you choose to be, not the ones they tried to make you. We left the house for the last time as the sun set. Crime scene tape already decorated the entrance. Soon forensic accountants would dissect every transaction, investigators would catalog every crime, and the Brennan empire would crumble into evidence tags and case numbers. In the car, Nathan took my hand. Thank you for standing by me, for being strong enough to face them, for everything. That's what partners do, I said simply. We protect each other's nests. As we drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Sterling's testimony is devastating. We're looking at life sentences. You did it, Aileen. You got justice for your parents. I looked at Nathan, at the man who'd chosen right over easy truth, over family justice, over comfort. Then I looked forward toward the life we'd build on honest foundations. No, I said aloud. We did it. All of us who refused to let them win. The Brennan estate disappeared in the rearview mirror. Ahead lay depositions and trials, but also freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from facing the worst and surviving. The predators were caged. The sparrows were free. And somewhere I hoped my parents and grandmother were finally at peace. Friday morning brought a circus to our quiet neighborhood. News vans lined the street, reporters thrust microphones at anyone who ventured outside, and our phones rang non-stop with requests for interviews. Nathan and I huddled in our living room curtains, drawn, trying to process the avalanche. Turn it off, Nathan said as the local news played footage of his parents' arrest for the dozenth time. I clicked off the television, plunging us into blessed silence. We'd been up most of the night with Patricia and the FBI giving detailed statements and preparing for what came next. I need to go to the office, Nathan said suddenly. The guys don't know what's happening. They're probably freaking out about the business. I'll come with you. He shook his head. You should stay here away from the cameras. I need to do this alone. Face them, explain. See who's still willing to work for the son of murderers. My heart ached for him. Nathan. It's okay, I knew this would be part of it. He kissed my forehead. I'll be back by lunch. After he left through the garage, avoiding the worst of the media, I sat in the quiet house feeling strangely empty. The fight was over, but the war was just beginning. My phone rang, Stanley Morrison. Aileen, can you come to my office? There's something else in your grandmother's files. Something she marked only after their arrest. 90 minutes later, having snuck out through our neighbor's backyard to avoid reporters, I sat in Stanley's office staring at a letter dated just 6 months before my grandmother's death. My dearest Aileen. I read aloud. If you're reading this, then you've done what I couldn't brought them to justice. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Prouder than you can know. But there's one more truth you need to hear, and I'm sorry I have to tell it from beyond the grave. The night your parents died, I was supposed to be with them. We'd planned to confront Gerald together about his threats, but I fell ill what I thought was food poisoning. Now I know better. Margaret had tea with me that afternoon. She dosed me with something to keep me away to isolate your parents. I've lived with that guilt for 10 years. If I'd been there, maybe I could have saved them. Maybe my presence would have stopped their plan. Or maybe I'd have died too, leaving you truly alone. I'll never know. What I do know is that I spent every day since preparing for this moment. Every document collected, every protection, built every ally cultivated all for you. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not from guilt, but from love. The Brennans took my daughter, but they gave me clarity. They showed me that evil walks in designer shoes and speaks in cultured tones. They taught me that protecting those we love sometimes means playing a very long game. You've won that game now, but winning isn't the end, it's the beginning. Begin your life free from their shadow. Build something beautiful with Nathan. Have the family they tried to prevent. Live the life they attempted to steal. And know that somewhere beyond this veil, your parents and I are celebrating your strength, your courage, and your refusal to let darkness win. All my love, Grandma. P.S. Check the bottom drawer of my old desk. I left one more gift. Tears streamed down my face as I folded the letter. Stanley wordlessly handed me tissues. She blamed herself, I whispered. Survivor's guilt, Stanley said gently, common in these situations, but she channeled it into purpose. Everything she built was from love, not guilt. The desk, Stanley smiled sadly. In storage. I had it moved here after she passed. He led me to a side room where my grandmother's mahogany desk sat waiting. The bottom drawer opened to reveal a safety deposit box key and a note for the family you'll build. The box is downstairs in our vault, Stanley explained. She updated it yearly until her death. The box contained exactly what I'd expected and more than I'd hoped. Photographs of my parents I'd never seen. Their wedding ring saved somehow from the accident. My mother's diary from when she was pregnant with me. And at the bottom, wrapped in velvet, a pair of silver baby spoons engraved with H for Hartley. She saved everything, I breathed. For your children, Stanley said quietly. She knew you'd need tangible connections to pass down. The Brennans tried to sever your family line. Elizabeth made sure they failed. My phone buzzed. Nathan, we need to talk. Can you meet me at home? Something's happened. Fear spiked through me. I grabbed the box's contents, thanked Stanley, and raced home through back streets. Nathan's truck was in the driveway, but so was another car I didn't recognize. I found them in the kitchen, Nathan and a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-40s professional dress, tired eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. Aileen, Nathan said carefully. This is Sandra Chen. She says she's my sister. The words didn't compute. Your what? Half-sister, Sandra corrected softly. Gerald's daughter from his first marriage. The one they told Nathan died in infancy. I sank into a chair. You're alive. Very much so, though legally dead according to the paperwork my father filed 38 years ago. Sandra's smile was bitter. I've been watching the news, seeing him arrested. I thought maybe it was finally safe to exist again. I don't understand, Nathan said, still looking shell-shocked. They told me you died of SIDS. Mom showed me the death certificate. Forged, like so much else in their lives. Sandra accepted the coffee I automatically poured. My mother discovered Gerald was stealing from her family's business. When she threatened exposure, he took me. I was 6 months old. He told her if she pursued charges, she'd never see me again. If she stayed quiet, he'd return me when I was 18. Did he? I asked, though the answer was obvious. She died when I was 12. Car accident. Sandra's tone suggested she doubted the accident part. I was raised by Gerald's cousin in Oregon, told my parents were dead. It wasn't until I turned 21 and inherited my mother's diary that I learned the truth. "Why didn't you come forward?" Nathan asked. "With what proof Gerald Brennan, pillar of the community, versus the wild claims of a nobody? Besides," her voice dropped, "I had my own family by then, 2 kids I couldn't risk, so I stayed dead and stayed away. But now he's exposed. Now there's proof of what he is. Now maybe I can help my brother understand he's not alone." She reached across the table, hesitating. "If you want a sister who's been watching from afar, wishing she could warn you." Nathan took her hand, tears in his eyes. "All these years I thought I was their only child, that all their expectations, all their poison landed on me alone." "You were never alone," Sandra said firmly. "I followed your life as best I could. Your marriage to Aileen gave me hope, finally someone who might help you break free. When I saw the news about the documentary, the arrest, I knew you'd done it." "We did it," Nathan corrected, squeezing my hand. "I couldn't have survived without Aileen." We spent the next hours sharing stories. Sandra told us about her life, a teacher married to a good man, 2 teenagers who didn't know their grandfather was alive, let alone a monster. Nathan shared his childhood, the pressure, the manipulation, the slow realization of what his parents truly were. "There's something else," Sandra said eventually. "Others like us, Gerald's victims' children, some who lost parents, some who lost fortunes, all damaged by the Brennan legacy. We've been in contact online, supporting each other. They want to meet you, Nathan, the son who finally stood up. A support group for our parents' victims." Nathan's laugh was hollow. God, what a thing to bond over. "Survival," Sandra corrected. "We bond over survival, and now justice." As she prepared to leave, promising to return tomorrow with photos and more stories, Nathan hugged his sister for the first time in both their lives. "Thank you for staying alive," he whispered, "for waiting until it was safe." "Thank you for making it safe," she replied. After she left, Nathan and I sat in our kitchen processing yet another revelation. The Brennan crimes seemed endless tentacles, reaching across decades and states. "A sister," Nathan marveled. "A whole person erased because she was inconvenient." "Your father's first victim that we know of," I said. "A baby stolen from her mother." Nathan's phone rang, his foreman, Mike. "Boss, you need to see the news. Channel 12. We turned on the television to find Diane being interviewed on the courthouse steps. She looked smaller, somehow younger without her parents' shadow. "Want to make amends," she was saying. "I've been complicit through silence for too long. That's why I'm establishing a fund for my parents' victims. Full restitution plus damages. Mr. Morrison is helping identify all parties who lost money to my family's schemes." "How much money are we talking about?" the reporter asked. "Initial estimates are around $40 million. That's what we can trace so far. I'm liquidating everything, the houses, the investments, the offshore accounts I've helped authorities locate. Every penny goes to victims." "What will you do after—" Diane smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked genuine. "Disappear. Start fresh somewhere as just Diane, not Diane Brennan. Maybe finally figure out who that is." The reporter turned to the camera. "A remarkable development in the Brennan case. The daughter turning state's evidence and surrendering a fortune to—" Nathan clicked off the television. "She's giving it all away." "Blood money," I said. "She doesn't want it." "Smart. Clean break." He was quiet for a moment. "Should I do the same? The business was built partly with their loans." "Built with your sweat and integrity. The loans were legal even if the lenders weren't. Patricia said the business is clean." "Still feels tainted." I thought about my grandmother's letter about building something beautiful. Then we transform it. Make it something entirely yours. Hire Sandra's kids as summer interns. Give jobs to other victims' families. Turn their weapon into something healing. Nathan's eyes lit up. A contracting company that specifically helps people rebuild after tragedy, after crimes. We have the experience now. Brennan Construction becomes Phoenix Builders. rising from ashes. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen in days. I like it. That evening, as we ate takeout and planned a future free from the Brennan shadow, Patricia called with an update. Sterling flipped completely. He's given us everything, accounts, names, crimes going back 25 years. With his testimony and Diane's evidence, your in-laws are looking at consecutive life sentences. Good, Nathan said flatly. There's more. We've identified 8 more victims we didn't know about. Families who'll finally have answers because of you two. After she hung up, we sat in comfortable silence. The war wasn't over. Trials would take years. Media attention would ebb and flow. Healing would be a long journey. But the first battle was won. Read me your grandmother's letter again, Nathan asked softly. I retrieved it from my bag, reading Elizabeth's words aloud in our quiet kitchen. When I finished, Nathan was crying. She loved you so much, he said. Spent her last years building you armor against my family. Our family now, I corrected. You, me, Sandra, the one we choose. The one we build. He pulled me close. Think we can do it. Create something good from all this wreckage. I thought of my parents who died rather than compromise their integrity, of my grandmother who'd spent 20 years preparing for justice, of Sandra who'd survived erasure, of Diane choosing truth over comfort. We already have, I said. We already have. Saturday arrived with an unexpected calm. The media frenzy had shifted to the courthouse where Gerald and Margaret were being arraigned. Nathan and I sat on our back porch, sharing coffee and processing the whirlwind of revelations. I can't stop thinking about Sandra, Nathan said, staring into his mug. All these years I had a sister, someone who could have shared the burden, understood the madness. Your parents stole that from both of you, I reminded him gently. They stole so much from so many. He set down his coffee with sudden decision. I need to talk to them. Nathan, no. Not for them. For me. I need to look them in the eye and tell them exactly what they've lost. I need them to know that I know everything. His jaw set with determination. I need closure. 3 hours later, we sat in a federal holding facility waiting room. Patricia had arranged the visit, though she'd advised against it. You sure about this? I asked for the 10th time. No, but I'm doing it anyway. He squeezed my hand. You don't have to come in. Try and stop me. The meeting room was sterile, gray, bulletproof glass dividing visitors from inmates. When Gerald shuffled in wearing orange jumpsuit and shackles, Nathan inhaled sharply. His father had aged a decade. In 2 days, the powerful banker facade crumbled to reveal a bitter old man. Gerald picked up the phone on his side. Nathan did the same. Come to gloat. Gerald's voice was hoarse. Come to say goodbye, Nathan replied evenly, and to tell you some things you need to hear. I don't need to hear anything from an ungrateful, Sandra's alive. The words cut Gerald off mid-sentence. His face went white. That's impossible. She died. You filed false death certificates and gave her to your cousin in Oregon. She's 43 now. 2 kids. Happy. Nathan leaned forward. You stole my sister from me to punish her mother. Who does that? You don't understand, Gerald started, but Nathan kept going. 17 murders, Dad, that we know of. My wife's parents among them. You orphaned the woman I love because her father wouldn't invest in your schemes. Business requires difficult decisions. Murder isn't business. Nathan's control cracked. It's evil, pure simple evil, and you dressed it up in expensive suits and charity galas. We built an empire. You built a graveyard. And for what money you're going to die in prison without touching power that evaporated? The second handcuffs touched your wrists? Nathan shook his head. Was it worth it? Gerald's mask finally shattered completely. You have no idea what it took to rise from nothing. Your mother and I started with scraps surrounded by people born into privilege. We had to take what they wouldn't give. By killing them. By being stronger than them? Gerald slammed his free hand on the counter. The weak deserve to lose to the strong. That's nature. Then by your own logic, Nathan said quietly, you deserve everything that's coming. Because you lost. To Aileen, to her grandmother's planning, to the truth. You were weak, and we were stronger. Gerald's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. I'm changing my name, Nathan continued. I won't be a Brennan anymore. Your bloodline, your legacy dies with you and Mom. Sandra never used the name, and I'm abandoning it. You can't. I can. I will. I'm taking Aileen's name. Nathan Hartley has a nice ring to it. Don't you think the son of murderers dies today? The husband of a survivor begins. Your mother will be destroyed, Gerald tried desperately. At least see her, let her explain. Explain what? How she dosed Elizabeth Hartley with poison to isolate her targets. How she cried after watching my in-laws die. How she helped you steal a baby from her mother. Nathan stood. I've heard enough explanations for a lifetime. Nathan, please. Goodbye, Gerald. May you live long enough to understand exactly what you threw away for money. Nathan hung up the phone and walked out without looking back. I followed, my heart bursting with pride and pain for the man I'd married. In the parking lot, he leaned against our car and released a shuddering breath. I thought it would feel better, confronting him. How does it feel? Empty, like yelling into a void. He still doesn't think he did anything wrong. Sociopaths rarely do, Patricia said, approaching from her own car. But that wasn't about changing his mind. That was about you speaking your truth. Did it work? Nathan asked her. Patricia smiled grimly. Every word was recorded. His admission about taking what others wouldn't give will play beautifully in court. Thank you for that. I didn't do it for the case. I know, but justice takes many forms. She studied us both. You two did something remarkable. You ended a 30-year reign of terror. The victims I've spoken to, they're crying with relief. You've given them closure. What about our closure? I asked. That's harder. But it starts with this, with facing the monsters and refusing to become them, with choosing love over fear, truth over comfort. Patricia smiled more genuinely. And sometimes with unexpected gifts. Check your mail when you get home. Curious, we drove home to find a package on our doorstep. Inside was a photo album and a letter from Sandra. Dear Nathan and Aileen, I couldn't sleep after our talk. Kept thinking about all the years we lost, all the moments stolen. Can't get those back, but maybe we can share what we did have. These are photos from my life, the one Gerald tried to erase. My wedding, my kids' births, their school plays and soccer games. The life that exists because Mom chose my safety over justice. Not saying she made the right choice, just the only one she could live with. If you're willing, I'd like you to meet them. My kids. Your nephew and niece who don't know they have an uncle. They're good kids, nothing like the poison we grew up with. Maybe that's the real victory, raising children who'll never know that kind of darkness. My husband knows everything now. He's angry I kept it secret so long, but understands why. He wants to meet you too. Says anyone who stood up to Gerald Brennan is someone worth knowing. I know it's a lot. We're strangers who share blood and trauma, but maybe we could try being family. The real kind, not the Brennan kind. Your sister Sandra. P.S. My kids are 17 and 15, old enough to understand, young enough to still want extended family. What do you think? Nathan traced the photos with trembling fingers, a life lived in shadows because of his father's cruelty. Children who looked like him around the eyes. A sister's wedding he should have attended. She wants to try, he said wonderingly. Do you? I don't know. Maybe yes. He looked at me. Is it wrong to want something good to come from this mess? It's the most right thing in the world. We spent the evening going through Sandra's photos, mapping a life that paralleled Nathan's, but free from the Brennan influence. Her children were bright-faced and happy, raised by a teacher and an engineer who'd built their family on love, not manipulation. That night, as we lay in bed processing the day, Nathan said quietly, I want to meet them, my nephew and niece. Want to be the uncle they deserve. then we will. And I meant it about changing my name, Nathan Hartley, using your family name. Our family name, I corrected. Though you know my grandma would have loved that, the boy who chose justice carrying forward the Hartley name. Think my parents figured out yet that their threat came true, that I chose blood, just not theirs? They'll know during the trial when you testify as Nathan Hartley. He smiled in the darkness. Good, let them choke on it. Sunday brought Sandra's family to our door. David and Emma, 17 and 15, stared at Nathan with curious eyes that held no judgment, only interest. "So you're our uncle," David said, "the one who put grandfather in jail." "Grandfather," Nathan winced. "They told you—" "Mom told us everything yesterday," Emma said, "about why she had to hide why we couldn't know about you. It's messed up." "Language," Sandra warned gently. "But accurate," her husband Mark added. He was a solid man with kind eyes who shook Nathan's hand firmly. "Thank you for making it safe for my wife to exist openly again." We spent the day carefully building bridges. The kids were remarkably well adjusted, despite learning their family history included serial killers. They asked Nathan about construction, about meeting me, about everything except the darkness that connected them. "Mom says you're changing your name," Emma mentioned over lunch. "Can we come to the ceremony?" "Ceremony?" Nathan asked. "When someone chooses a new name, there should be witnesses," David said seriously. "People who recognize the change accept it. We'd like to be there if you want." Nathan's eyes filled. "I'd like that." As they prepared to leave, Sandra hugged us both. "Mom would have loved this," she whispered. Seeing Gerald's son choose light. She never got justice, but maybe this is better. "Your mother died in a car accident," I asked carefully. Sandra's smile was sad and knowing. "So they say. Single car, perfect weather, faulty brakes. Sound familiar?" Another victim, another accident, another life Gerald stole. "We'll add her to the list," I promised. "Patricia's investigating everything now." "Thank you." Sandra squeezed my hands. "For loving my brother, for being strong enough to face them, for ending their reign." After they left, Nathan and I sat in our living room surrounded by evidence of the life we were building. Photos with Sandra's family, documents for Phoenix builders, plans for the future. "We're doing it," Nathan said softly, "building something good from the ashes." "Just like the Phoenix," I agreed. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. "Margaret's agreed to allocate. Full confession in exchange for possibility of parole after 25 years. She's going to detail every crime, every victim. Gerald's fighting, but her testimony will bury him. You won." I showed Nathan the message. He read it twice, then set the phone aside. "Do you feel like we won?" he asked. I thought about my parents gone forever, about Sandra's mother, another casualty, about 17 families destroyed for greed. "No," I admitted. "But I feel like we stopped them from losing more, and maybe that's enough." "Maybe that's everything," Nathan agreed, pulling me close. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more trials, more processing of generational trauma. But tonight we had each other. We had truth. We had the family we were choosing to build. The Brennan Empire was rubble, but from that rubble, the Hartley Phoenix was already rising. Monday morning arrived with a phone call that changed everything. Patricia's voice was tense, urgent. "We have a problem. Gerald made bail." I nearly dropped my coffee. "What? How is that possible?" "A judge we missed, Harrington. Apparently, Gerald saved his son from a scandal years ago. He set bail at $5 million and someone posted it anonymously." "Who has that kind of money?" Nathan asked, having heard my end of the conversation. "We're investigating, but Aileen Gerald's gone underground. He's not at the estate, not at any known properties. Margaret's still in custody, but she's gone silent. Something's happening." Fear crept up my spine. Should we be worried? "I've assigned protection details to both of you. Don't go anywhere alone. And if Gerald tries to contact you..." The doorbell rang. Nathan and I froze. "Someone's at the door," I whispered. Don't answer it. Where's your protection detail? Through the window, I could see an unmarked sedan at the curb. The agent inside was slumped over, unmoving. Patricia, the agent. Get out of the house now, back door, run. We didn't need to be told twice. Grabbing keys and phones, we slipped out through the kitchen as the doorbell rang again, more insistent. We made it to Nathan's truck just as we heard glass breaking behind us. Drive, I urged, and Nathan peeled out tires, screeching. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of figures entering our home. My phone rang immediately. Patricia. We're okay, I said before she could ask. Heading north on Madison. What's happening? Gerald's making his last play. We've got units converging on your house. Where can you go? That's safe. Nathan answered without hesitation. Sandra's. They don't know about her. Do it. I'll send backup to meet you there. The 20-minute drive to Sandra's suburban home felt like hours. Nathan white-knuckled the steering wheel while I watched for any signs of pursuit. When Sandra opened her door to find us on her porch, her face went pale. What's wrong? Dad's out, Nathan said simply. He's coming for us. Sandra immediately ushered us in, locking doors and drawing curtains. Mark's at work. The kids are at school. Should I get them? No, I said. Keep them away until this is over. Patricia arrived within the hour, bringing a full tactical team. Your house was ransacked. They were looking for something specific, tore apart your home office, your grandmother's documents. The evidence is all in federal custody, I said. What could they want? That's what worries me. Gerald's not stupid. He knows we have everything. So what's he after? The answer came via Nathan's phone, a video message from an unknown number. Gerald's face filled the screen, haggard but determined. Son, if you're watching this, then you escaped my associates. Good. You were always smarter than I gave you credit for, but not smart enough to see the whole picture. You think you've won. You've destroyed our family for that girl and her sanctimonious grandmother. Let me tell you what Elizabeth Hartley didn't know, what her precious evidence doesn't show. The night her daughter died, your wife's parents, they weren't just innocent victims. James Hartley had evidence of his own, photos, recordings, proof of certain indiscretions by powerful people. He was planning to use them to blackmail his way into circles that had rejected him. We weren't the only ones who wanted him gone, Nathan. We were just the ones willing to act. But the others, the ones who hired us, they're still out there, still powerful, and very unhappy about this attention. You have 24 hours to recant everything. Claim mental distress, coercion, whatever story works. Get the charges dropped, or those powerful people will finish what we started. Not just with Aileen, with everyone you both love. Family protects family's son. Even now I'm trying to protect you. 24 hours. The video ended. We sat in stunned silence. He's lying, Nathan said finally, trying to manipulate us into backing down. Maybe, Patricia said slowly, but maybe not. I've always wondered how the Brennans operated so long without detection. What if they had protection? What if they were the weapon, not the wielders? You're saying my parents were blackmailers? I asked, anger flashing. I'm saying we need to investigate. If there's truth here, we need to know. Patricia made rapid calls, setting inquiries in motion. While we waited, Sandra made coffee with shaking hands. He's still controlling everything, even from jail. No, Nathan said firmly. He's desperate. This is his last card. Then let's see what he's holding, I said. Patricia, can we trace where Gerald posted bail from who visited him in holding? Already on it. Her phone buzzed. Interesting. 3 visitors yesterday. His lawyer expected. Margaret's attorney, odd but not unusual, and Robert Sterling. Sterling's in custody, Nathan protested. Was. He made a deal. Partial testimony for house arrest pending trial. Patricia's expression darkened. He's our anonymous bail poster. Has to be. So Sterling and Gerald are working together again, I mused. Why, what does Sterling gain? The answer came from an unexpected source. Diane called Patricia's phone hysterical. They're all lying. she screamed before Patricia could speak. My parents, Sterling, all of them. I found more recordings, hidden ones. There's a whole other level. Diane, slow down. Where are you? FBI safe house. But I don't think I'm safe. These recordings. Patricia, they implicate judges, senators, police commissioners. My parents weren't freelance. They were contractors, paid killers for the ultra-wealthy. My blood ran cold. If true, we hadn't exposed a family crime, we'd threatened an entire network. Send me everything, Patricia commanded. We're pulling you out, moving you to federal protection. It's too late, Diane whispered. There's someone at the door, someone who shouldn't know where. The line went dead. Patricia immediately started barking orders into her phone, mobilizing units to Diane's location. We waited in tense silence until her phone rang again. She's alive, Patricia reported. Scared but alive. It was U.S. Marshals moving her on orders from above. Someone very high up wants her protected. Or silenced, Nathan said grimly. I'm beginning to think your father's threat isn't empty, Patricia admitted. If the Brennans were hired killers for a broader network, then exposing them threatens everyone in that network. I finished. Gerald's trying to save himself by threatening mutual destruction. So what do we do? Sandra asked. I thought of my grandmother playing the long game, of my parents who died rather than be corrupted, of all the families destroyed by greed masquerading as power. We don't back down, I said firmly. We accelerate. If there's a network, we expose it all. That's suicide, Patricia warned. These people, if they exist, have resources we can't match. Maybe, but they have one weakness Gerald just revealed. I smiled grimly. They're scared. For the first time in decades, they're vulnerable, and scared people make mistakes. What are you proposing? Gerald wants us to recant in 24 hours. Let's give him something better. A meeting, face to face. Him, us, and whoever he's really working for. Absolutely not, Nathan protested. Hear me out. Patricia's people wire us cover every angle. Gerald thinks he's threatening us into submission. Instead, he walks into a trap, gets his handlers to reveal themselves. It's insane, Patricia said. Then grudgingly, but it might work if Gerald's as desperate as that video suggests. He is, Nathan said quietly. I know my father. He's never admitted trying to protect anyone before. He's terrified. Then let's use that terror, I said. One last con, the biggest one yet. We spent the next hours planning. Patricia brought in technical specialists, behavioral analysts, anyone who could help us craft the perfect trap. Nathan would contact his father, agree to a meeting, but with conditions neutral, ground limited, participants guarantees of safety. He'll never agree, Sandra worried. He will, Nathan assured her, because he needs this to end as much as we do. Prison's made him realize his network won't protect him forever. We're his only shot at a deal. The call was brief, tense. Gerald agreed too quickly, suggesting he'd expected this move. Tomorrow noon at a closed restaurant Patricia's team could control. Gerald could bring one associate. We could do the same. Sterling, Patricia predicted. He'll bring Sterling. Good, I said. 2 birds, 1 recording device. That night, unable to sleep in the safe house Patricia had arranged, Nathan and I stood on the balcony watching city lights twinkle. Tomorrow could go very wrong, he said quietly. Or very right. We could end this completely. Or die trying. I took his hand. Your father's right about one thing. Family protects family. But he never understood what real family means. It's not blood or manipulation or shared crimes. It's choice. It's love. It's doing the right thing even when it costs everything. Philosophy major, he teased gently. Grandmother's granddaughter, I corrected. She saw this moment coming, remember, prepared for it. Maybe she knew it would be bigger than just your parents. Then let's hope she prepared for that too. She did, I said, thinking of all the protections still in place, all the evidence scattered across secure servers and safety deposit boxes. Tomorrow we find out just how well. As we prepared for what could be our last night together, I thought about the journey from that lunch 3 weeks ago to now. How a single text, "Don't react, they're recording you," had unraveled decades of crime and corruption. Tomorrow we'd enter the wolves' den one last time, but this time we knew exactly what we were hunting, and more importantly, we knew we weren't hunting alone. The trap was set. Now we just had to survive springing it. Tuesday arrived gray and drizzling fitting weather for what might be our last confrontation with Gerald Brennan. Nathan and I sat in Patricia's mobile command unit getting fitted with the latest surveillance equipment. These are next-generation devices. The tech specialist explained attaching what looked like a simple button to my blouse. Video, audio, GPS, even biometric monitoring. If your heart rate spikes, we'll know. "It's going to spike the moment we see Gerald," Nathan muttered, adjusting his own wire. Patricia reviewed the restaurant layout one final time. We have agents positioned as staff customers, delivery drivers, snipers on adjacent rooftops. If this goes sideways, "It won't," I interrupted. "Gerald needs this meeting more than we do. He's not planning violence. He's planning manipulation. And if you're wrong, then we'll be very grateful for all these precautions." At 11:45, we entered Romano's, a family Italian restaurant that had closed for renovations. In reality, every table held hidden cameras, every wall had embedded microphones, and every exit was covered by federal agents. Gerald was already there, sitting at a corner booth that gave him sightlines to all entrances. But it wasn't Sterling beside him. It was Margaret. "Impossible," Nathan breathed. "She's in federal custody." "Was," Margaret corrected, having heard him despite the distance. "Amazing what a good lawyer and a judge's emergency order can accomplish." She looked immaculate despite her time in custody, hair perfectly styled, wearing a designer suit that screamed money and power. Gerald, in contrast, looked haggard, diminished. We approached slowly, Patricia's voice in our earpieces, reminding us to stay calm. As we slid into the booth across from them, Margaret smiled. "My dear children, so good to see you again." "We're not your children," I said flatly. "No, Nathan came from my body, and you, Aileen, were almost my daughter-in-law. Family, even if estranged." "Estranged is a gentle word for what we are," Nathan said. "I prefer enemies." Gerald flinched, but Margaret's smile never wavered. Such harsh language, but understandable given recent misunderstandings. "Murders aren't misunderstandings," I shot back. "Aren't they?" Margaret leaned forward. "Your parents, for instance. You think you know the whole story because you found some evidence, heard some recordings. But did you know your father was planning to destroy dozens of families with his blackmail scheme?" "You're lying." "Am I?" She produced a tablet, sliding it across the table. "Security footage from your father's office 2 days before his death. Audio enhanced by the FBI's own labs, ironically enough." Despite myself, I looked. The grainy footage showed my father at his desk talking on the phone. The audio was unclear, but certain phrases stood out. Career-ending photos. Senator's son. Cooperation or exposure. My heart sank. Nathan gripped my hand under the table. "Fake," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "FBI authenticated." Gerald spoke for the first time. "Your precious Patricia verified it herself yesterday. Didn't she mention it?" Patricia's voice in my ear. "It's real. I'm sorry. I just found out." The world tilted. My father, my moral center, planning blackmail. "He wasn't a bad man," Margaret continued, voice almost gentle. "Just desperate. His company was failing investors pulling out. He thought he'd found leverage to save it. Instead, he found powerful enemies." "Who hired you?" Nathan demanded. "Who wanted them dead?" "Does it matter?" "The point is, we were tools, not initiators. Just as you've been tools for Patricia's ambition for the FBI's hunger for headlines. We chose... You chose nothing." Gerald interrupted some fire returning to his eyes. "You were manipulated from the start. That text during lunch? We didn't send it. Think, Nathan. How did Patricia know about our surveillance before you found it? My blood chilled. No. Oh, yes, Margaret purred. Your helpful prosecutor has been playing all sides, building her career on our bodies, your trauma. Tell me, did she happen to mention she's running for district attorney? You're trying to divide us, Nathan said, but doubt crept into his voice. Are we, or are we trying to save you from making a fatal mistake? Gerald pulled out his own phone. 20 minutes ago, while you were being wired up, Patricia made a very interesting call. He played a recording. Patricia's voice clear and recognizable. Testimony is locked in. The Brennan children are fully committed. After today's meeting, we'll have enough to take down the entire network. My appointment as DA is virtually guaranteed. That's edited, I said desperately. Manipulated. Is it? Call her. Ask her directly if she's running for DA. Ask if she knew about your father's blackmail evidence before today. Ask if she sent that first warning text. I touched my earpiece. Patricia. Silence. Then, we need to focus on the mission. Answer the questions, Nathan demanded. A longer pause. Yes, I'm running for DA. Yes, I've known about the blackmail evidence for a week, but... I ripped out the earpiece, Nathan following suit. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. There we are, Margaret said softly. The truth at last. You've been pawns in someone else's game just as we were pawns for our employers. You're still murderers, Nathan said, but his voice was hollow. Yes, Gerald agreed simply. We killed for money. Patricia destroyed lives for power, which is worse. Both, I said. You're both monsters. Then what does that make you? Margaret asked. The granddaughter of a woman who knew about our crimes for decades, but only acted when it benefited you. The son who turned on his blood for a prosecutor's agenda. People who wanted justice, Nathan said firmly, his hand finding mine again. Whatever Patricia's motives, whatever my grandmother's timing, you killed innocent people. That's the truth that matters. Innocent. Gerald laughed bitterly. Your father was a blackmailer, Aileen. My business partners were thieves and frauds. Margaret's first husband was abusing their daughter. Where's the innocence? You don't get to play judge and executioner, I snapped. But Patricia does. The FBI does you do. Margaret shook her head. The world isn't divided into heroes and villains, children. We're all compromised. The only question is the degree. Why are we here? Nathan cut through the philosophy. What do you want? To offer you the truth, Gerald said. Full disclosure about the network, the players, the crimes. Everything Patricia pretends to want but actually fears because it reaches too high. Senators, judges, captains of industry people who could destroy her career with a phone call. In exchange for, you walk away, Margaret said simply. Take your grandmother's millions, build your life, have your babies. Let the dead bury the dead. And you go free, I stated. We disappear, Gerald corrected. New names, new country, never to return. Our employers get their silence, you get your peace, everyone survives. Except your victims' families, who are better served by your crusade, by trials that will drag on for years, revealing ugly truths about their loved ones, by a prosecutor using their pain for political gain. They'd clearly rehearsed this, each argument designed to hit our doubts. And damn them, it was working. Patricia had lied, manipulated, used us. My father hadn't been the perfect man I'd believed. The world wasn't as black and white as I'd needed it to be. You have 1 hour to decide, Margaret said, standing. Full cooperation with us or continue being Patricia's puppets. Choose wisely. They left us sitting there, heads spinning with revelations and doubts. Around us, the customers and staff maintained their covers, but I could feel their confusion. This wasn't going according to anyone's plan. Nathan and I sat in silence for a long moment. Then he reached for his discarded earpiece. We know you're listening, he said to the air. The real surveillance, not these toys. We know you heard everything, so here's what's going to happen. He pulled me to my feet, speaking louder. We're walking out of here. We're going to think. And in 1 hour, we're going to make a decision based on truth, not manipulation. Not yours, not theirs. Ours. We left through the front door, ignoring the agents who materialized to follow us. In Nathan's truck, we drove aimlessly while processing everything. "Do you think it's true?" I finally asked. "About my father. Does it matter even if he was planning blackmail? He didn't deserve to die for it. But it changes things, makes them less absolutely evil, more human." Nathan sighed. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe there are no pure villains or heroes. Maybe there's just people making choices, some worse than others." "So what do we choose?" Nathan pulled into a park, the same one where we'd gotten engaged 3 years ago. We walked to our bench, sat watching ducks paddle across the pond. "I choose justice," he said finally. "Imperfect, complicated, messy justice. Because the alternative is letting killers walk free to protect powerful people who might be just as bad. Even knowing Patricia used us, she did use us, but we also chose to act. Our parents are still dead. Those 17 families still deserve answers." He took my hand. "I'd rather be a pawn on the right side than a king serving wrong." I thought about my grandmother playing her long game. She'd known it would be complicated, that truth would be messy, but she'd prepared anyway, acted anyway. Then we give Patricia what she wants, I decided. But on our terms. Full exposure, everyone's crimes laid bare. The network, the killers, the blackmailers. Let the courts sort through the mess. Your parents won't be heroes in that story. They'll be human. That's enough. We returned to the restaurant with minutes to spare. Gerald and Margaret waited Sterling now with them, all three looking confident in our capitulation. "We've decided," Nathan announced, "we'll take your deal." Their faces lit up with victory. "But," I continued, "we're taking it to its logical conclusion. Full disclosure means full disclosure. Everything you know, everyone involved, all of it on record. Today. Now." That wasn't Gerald started. "The offer." Nathan smiled coldly. "It is now. Because federal agents have this place surrounded and you just confessed to multiple murders on tape. So either you give us everything or you spend tonight in cells, hoping your powerful friends protect you better than you protected their secrets." Margaret's composure finally cracked. "You little..." "Careful," I warned. "Your next words determine whether you get any deal at all." Sterling spoke for the first time. "They'll kill us. The network. If we expose them, we're dead." "Then you better help us take them down first," Nathan said, starting with names, all of them. What followed was 4 hours of the most comprehensive confession in FBI history. Names, dates, methods, payments, a web of corruption reaching into every corner of power. Patricia arrived halfway through her political ambitions, clearly warring with her professional duty as the scope became clear. But she did her job as we did ours. Because whatever our motives, whatever our flaws, the truth mattered more than any of us. As Gerald and Margaret were led away in chains for the final time, Gerald turned back. "I hope you can live with what you've done," he said. "I hope you can't," Nathan replied. And that was the last time we saw his parents. The aftermath was explosive. Senators resigned, judges were arrested, a former president's chief of staff was indicted. Patricia got her headlines but lost her DA race when her manipulation of us came to light. But 17 families got justice, and we got something harder truth, messy, painful, human truth. My parents weren't perfect. Nathan's were monsters. My grandmother was calculating even in her love. We were all flawed players in a larger game. But we'd chosen to play for the right stakes, and in the end, that made all the difference. The fallout began immediately. Within hours of Gerald and Margaret's comprehensive confession, news broke nationwide. The Brennan Files, as media dubbed them, revealed a web of corruption that reached into every major institution in the country. Nathan and I sat in Patricia's office our last meeting with her, watching news channels explode with revelations. Senator Marcus Whitfield arrested. Federal Judge Thompson found dead apparent suicide. 3 Fortune 500 CEOs implicated. "You did this," Patricia said quietly. "You brought down an empire that's existed for 40 years. "We all did," I corrected. "For different reasons, maybe, but we all played our parts." Patricia studied us across her desk. Gone was the commanding prosecutor we'd first met. In her place sat a woman facing the ruins of her political ambitions. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "I did use you. I saw an opportunity to make my career, and I took it." "But," Nathan prompted, "but I also believed in justice. Still do. Maybe my methods were wrong, but those people needed to be stopped." She pulled out a thick folder. "Which is why I'm giving you this." Inside were documents we'd never seen, recordings, financial records, and at the bottom a sealed envelope marked E. Hartley Personal. "Your grandmother gave me this 5 years ago," Patricia explained, "said to only give it to you if the whole truth came out, all of it, even the ugly parts about your father." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper in my grandmother's handwriting. "My darling Aileen, if you're reading this, then you know the hardest truth that your father wasn't perfect. He was desperate, scared, trying to save his company through means that went against everything he'd taught you. But here's what you also need to know. He came to me the night before he died, confessed everything. He'd gathered the blackmail material, yes, but he couldn't go through with it. He was planning to destroy it all to face bankruptcy with dignity, rather than become like those he'd once stood against. The Brennans killed him before he could make things right, but his intention matters. In his final hours, your father chose integrity over survival. That's the man you should remember, not the one who stumbled, but the one who got back up. I love you forever, Grandma." Tears streamed down my face as I shared the letter with Nathan. Even Patricia seemed moved. "She knew everything," Nathan marveled, "prepared for every contingency." "She was remarkable," Patricia agreed. "I'm sorry I wasn't the ally she deserved, or that you deserved." We left her office for the last time, no longer prosecutor and witnesses, but simply 3 people who'd been part of something larger than themselves. The next weeks blurred together in a chaos of depositions, media requests, and shocking revelations. The Brennan network unraveled like a cheap sweater, each thread pulling loose, revealing more corruption beneath. Diane emerged as an unexpected hero, her decades of recordings providing crucial evidence. She testified with quiet dignity, acknowledging her family's crimes, while showing how she'd tried to document truth, even as a terrified child. "I couldn't stop them," she said in court, "but I could bear witness. I could ensure that someday, somehow, their victims would have proof." She gave up everything, the money, the properties, even heirlooms that weren't connected to crimes. The victims' fund she established would help families rebuild for generations. "I want to disappear," she told us after her final testimony. "Start fresh somewhere where the Brennan name means nothing. Is that cowardly?" "That's survival," Nathan assured her, "and you've earned it." We never saw her again, though occasionally postcards arrived with no return address. Pictures of mountains, oceans, forests, places where someone could build a new life free from the shadows of the past. The trials themselves were brutal. Gerald and Margaret, facing mountains of evidence, eventually pled guilty to avoid death sentences. Life without parole for both their empire, reduced to adjacent cells in federal prison. Sterling got 40 years. The network members received sentences ranging from 5 years to life, depending on their involvement. Some fled the country. Others, like Judge Thompson, chose their own exits rather than face justice. Through it all, Nathan's business not only survived, but thrived. Phoenix Builders became a symbol of resurrection, of building something clean from corrupted ground. He hired victims' family members, giving them fresh starts, along with fair wages. Sandra's family became our anchor. Sunday dinners where we didn't discuss trials or trauma, just normal things. David's college applications, Emma's art shows, Mark's terrible dad jokes. They gave us glimpses of what normal family looked like. "You saved us," Sandra told Nathan one evening, "not just from Gerald's shadow, but from the fear of it. My kids know their uncle as a hero who chose right over easy." "I'm no hero," Nathan protested. "You are to us," Emma said firmly. "Deal with it." 1 year after that fateful lunch, we held a memorial service for my parents. Not the quiet funeral they'd had a decade ago, but a real celebration of their lives. Stanley Morrison spoke about my father's integrity, his final choice to do right. Grace shared memories of my mother's kindness. Even Patricia attended, sitting quietly in the back. "They weren't perfect," I said at the podium, looking out at gathered friends and chosen family, "but they were good. They loved, deeply lived honestly, and in the end chose principle over profit. That's the legacy I choose to remember." Afterward, Nathan and I walked through the cemetery to my grandmother's grave. We'd added a new headstone, Elizabeth Hartley, protector strategist grandmother, the sparrow who brought down hawks. "She'd hate the dramatics," Nathan said with a smile. "She'd love that justice was served," I countered. We stood there quietly, two people who'd survived a war we never asked to fight. The Brennan name would live in infamy, a cautionary tale of greed and murder. But the Hartley name would continue, carried forward by choice rather than blood. "I've been thinking," Nathan said as we walked back to our car, "about what Gerald said, how blood is all that matters in the end." Nathan. He was wrong, but also right. Blood does matter, just not the way he meant. He stopped walking, taking both my hands. "I want to create new blood with you, our own family. Kids who'll never know that kind of poison, who'll grow up seeing what real love looks like." "Are you proposing we have a baby?" "I'm proposing we build a future that makes all this pain mean something. What do you think?" I thought about my grandmother's baby spoon saved for this possibility, about my parents who died before meeting their grandchildren, about choosing love over fear, hope over trauma. "I think yes," I said, kissing him there in the cemetery where so much had ended. "Let's make new blood." 9 months later, Elizabeth Grace Hartley came into the world screaming a fighter from her first breath. We called her Libby, and she had Nathan's eyes and my stubborn chin. Sandra and her family were there, along with Grace Stanley and the chosen family we'd built from the ashes of the old. "She's perfect," Margaret Brennan wrote from prison, having somehow learned of the birth. "Despite everything, I'm glad she exists. Maybe she'll be the Brennan who finally gets it right." We didn't respond. Some bridges were meant to stay burned. As I held Libby Nathan beside me, I thought about the long journey from that lunch to this moment. The betrayals and revelations, the losses and victories, the terrible truths and unexpected graces. "Tell me a story," Nathan said softly, watching our daughter sleep. "Once upon a time," I began, "there was a sparrow who learned she had talons. She used them to protect her nest from hawks who thought they owned the sky. And when the battle was won, she built a new nest with the hawk who chose to become a phoenix. Together they raised their young to fly free, unburdened by the past, but strengthened by its lessons." "How does it end?" Nathan asked. "It doesn't," I said, touching Libby's tiny hand. "It just transforms into a new beginning." Outside our hospital window, actual sparrows gathered on a wire, chirping at the dawn. Small birds easily overlooked, but fierce when protecting what mattered. Just like Grandma taught me, just like we'd teach Libby. The Brennan legacy was finished. The Hartley legacy had just begun. 2 years passed. 2 years of trials, testimonies, and slow reconstruction of lives shattered by the Brennan network. Nathan and I had found our rhythm, balancing parenthood with the ongoing legal proceedings that seemed endless. On a crisp October morning, the anniversary of my parents' death, Stanley Morrison called with urgency in his voice. "Aileen, you need to come to my office immediately. Bring Nathan. There's something you need to see." We arrived to find Stanley's usually composed face electric with excitement. Patricia was there reinstated as a prosecutor after her public apology and commitment to reform. Even more surprising, Diane sat in the corner looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. "I thought you disappeared," Nathan said to his sister. "I did. To Switzerland, following money trails." Diane smiled nervously. "I've been working with international investigators tracking down hidden assets. We found something." Stanley activated a large screen showing bank records, property deeds, investment portfolios. "Your grandmother was even cleverer than we knew. She didn't just document the Brennans' crimes, she traced their money, all of it. Over the past 30 years, Patricia explained the Brennans and their network amassed nearly $200 million in blood money, hidden in shell companies, offshore accounts, real estate under false names. "We knew this," I said, confused. "It's all being seized as evidence." "That's what they wanted you to think," Diane interjected. "But your grandmother found it first, years ago, and she did something incredible." Stanley pulled up more documents. Elizabeth Hartley systematically drained their secret accounts, legally brilliantly using their own shell companies against them. She moved the money into victim restitution funds before they even knew it was gone. My jaw dropped. "She stole from the thieves." "She returned stolen money to its rightful owners," Stanley corrected. "Look at the dates. Every time the Brennans thought they were depositing blood money, Elizabeth was redistributing it. They were essentially funding their own victims' recoveries." Nathan laughed, actually laughed. "That's why Dad was always complaining about investment returns. He thought he was being swindled by partners." "He was," Diane confirmed, "by a 70-year-old grandmother who understood forensic accounting better than his entire network." "There's more," Stanley said, pulling out a sealed box. "Elizabeth left instructions that this should only be opened once the network was fully exposed and all appeals exhausted. That happened yesterday when the Supreme Court refused to hear Gerald's case. Inside the box were video recordings, dozens of them. Stanley inserted the first disc. My grandmother appeared on screen looking directly at the camera with those sharp eyes I remembered so well. "Hello, my darling Aileen. If you're watching this, then you've done what I always knew you could. You've brought justice to those who thought themselves untouchable. I'm so proud of you." I gripped Nathan's hand as her voice continued. "By now, Stanley has shown you what I've been doing with the Brennans' blood money. Consider it my retirement hobby, forensic accounting with a purpose. But that's not why I made these recordings." She held up a thick folder. "What I have here are the real stories. Not the crimes or the trials, but the victims. Who they were. What they dreamed. What was stolen from them beyond money." The video shifted to show photographs, documents, interviews my grandmother had somehow conducted without anyone knowing. Maria Santos. She narrated over a photo of a smiling woman, killed in 2003 when she refused to sell her family restaurant to one of Gerald's shells. She was raising 3 grandchildren, teaching them her recipes, building a legacy of love. More photos, more stories. Each victim humanized, remembered, honored. I gathered these stories because I knew that when justice finally came, we'd need to remember why it mattered. Not for revenge or personal gain, but for them. For all the Maria Santosis whose lives were cut short by greed. The recording returned to my grandmother's face. "There are 37 of these videos, one for each confirmed victim. I want you to share them, Aileen. Let the world see who was lost, not just who was caught." "But there's one more story." She continued, her expression softening. "One I never told you directly." The screen filled with pictures of my parents I'd never seen, their dating years, their wedding, my birth. Your parents were targeted because they stood up to corruption, yes, but also because they represented something the Brennans couldn't understand: genuine love and partnership. They built their life on trust, not transactions, on joy, not greed. A video clip played my parents dancing at some long-ago party, completely absorbed in each other. That's what threatened the Brennans most, not your father's refusal to invest or his discovery of their schemes, but the fact that James and Lily Hartley were happy, truly deeply happy with enough rather than always grasping for more. My grandmother reappeared, tears in her eyes. They died protecting that happiness, that love, and in doing so, they passed it to you. You found Nathan, who chose love over blood. You built a family on truth rather than lies. You became everything the Brennans could never be: genuinely wealthy in the only currency that matters. Remember them all, Aileen. Share their stories, but live your own most fully. That's the greatest justice of all, a life well lived, despite those who tried to steal it. The recording ended. We sat in stunned silence, processing the gift my grandmother had given us, not just justice or money, but meaning. There's a practical component, too, Stanley said gently. The redistributed funds Elizabeth recovered. They're all in a master trust. As the only surviving direct victim, you're the trustee. It's your decision how to distribute the remaining millions. How much? Nathan asked. After victim restitution, families' compensation, and legal fees, approximately $43 million. The number was staggering, more than the Brennans had ever legitimately earned. All of it cleansed of blood, waiting to do good. We'll create a foundation, I decided immediately, for families affected by financial crimes, scholarships for their children, business grants for those starting over, counseling services. The Hartley Justice Foundation, Nathan suggested. The Phoenix Foundation, I corrected, for all of us who rose from ashes. Diane spoke up quietly. Could I help? I know I don't deserve. You're a victim too, I interrupted, and you've proven yourself. Of course you can help. The next months were a whirlwind of creation. We established the Phoenix Foundation with a board of victims' family members. Diane became our international liaison, using her connections to help families worldwide. Patricia joined as legal counsel, working pro bono to redeem her earlier manipulation. The foundation's first act was screening my grandmother's videos at a public memorial. 37 stories of lives cut short, but not forgotten. The media coverage was intense, but respectful. For once, victims were centered instead of criminals. Gerald wrote from prison a rambling letter about betrayal and ingratitude. We didn't respond. Margaret sent a shorter note. I hope the foundation helps people. It's more than we ever did. That one we acknowledged with a simple, "Thank you for understanding." As the third anniversary of that fateful lunch approached, Nathan and I sat in our backyard watching Libby toddle after butterflies. She was talking now, a constant stream of observations and questions. "Birdie," she announced, pointing at a sparrow on our fence. "That's right, baby, a sparrow." "Sparrow strong," she declared, something we'd been teaching her. "Very strong," Nathan agreed, scooping her up. "Just like you." The doorbell rang. Sandra and her family for Sunday dinner, a tradition unbroken since the trials ended. As I watched Nathan's real family gather, the one built on choice and love, I thought about Gerald's final prediction, that Nathan would be alone, that blood was all that mattered. He'd been right about blood mattering, but wrong about which blood counted. "Mama story," Libby requested as we settled around the dinner table. "Once upon a time, I began our family listening. There was a wise woman who planted seeds of justice in secret gardens. She knew that someday, when the seasons were right, those seeds would bloom into something beautiful. And when they did, Phoenix flowers." Libby shouted our family's name for the good that came from pain. "That's right, sweetheart. Phoenix flowers everywhere." As laughter filled our home, I felt my grandmother's presence, not ghostly or mystical, but in the love around this table, the justice achieved, the future being built. The Brennans had thought they were predators in a world of prey. They never understood that strength came in many forms, that sometimes the smallest bird could bring down the mightiest hunter, that love could outlast greed, truth could survive lies, and justice, however delayed, would find its way. The sparrow had indeed come home to nest, and from that nest a whole flock of phoenixes had taken flight. 5 years after that lunch that changed everything, Nathan and I stood in the renovated conference room of the Phoenix Foundation. What had once been a modest office suite had expanded to occupy an entire floor with victim services, legal aid and counseling departments, helping dozens of families every week. "Ready for this?" Nathan asked, adjusting his tie nervously. "As ready as anyone can be to face the past," I replied, smoothing my dress. Today marked the launch of the Phoenix Foundation's most ambitious project, yet a documentary series called After the Ashes, featuring not the criminals but the survivors, the families who rebuilt the communities that healed. The room filled with familiar faces. Patricia, now a respected victims' rights advocate. Stanley Morrison, our foundation's chief legal advisor. Grace, who'd left tech to run our counseling program. Sandra and her family, permanent fixtures in our lives. And surprisingly, Robert Sterling. He sat in the back, a shadow of the smooth operator who'd once helped the Brennans steal millions. Prison had aged him, but something else had changed too. His eyes held genuine remorse. "Thank you for allowing me to attend," he said quietly when I approached. "I know I don't deserve—" "You're here because you've been helping," I interrupted. "Your testimony has recovered $12 million in hidden assets. That money is helping families rebuild. You've earned this seat." He nodded, tears threatening. Even predators, it seemed, could choose transformation. The lights dimmed and the first episode began. My grandmother's face filled the screen. Not the recordings we'd found, but new interviews with people who'd known her, worked with her, been saved by her quiet interventions. Elizabeth Hartley was the most dangerous person I ever met, one former FBI agent said on screen. Not because she was violent or cruel, but because she was patient. She could wait decades for justice. The Brennans never stood a chance. Stories unfolded. Families who'd received anonymous donations that saved their homes. My grandmother's redistributed blood money at work. Children who'd gotten scholarships from administrative errors in their favor. Small business owners who'd mysteriously qualified for loans just when Gerald's network tried to destroy them. "She was playing chess while everyone else played checkers," Patricia said in her interview. "Every move calculated years in advance. Even her own death was timed. She held on just long enough to ensure Aileen would be strong enough to finish what she started." The documentary revealed something we hadn't known. My grandmother had been sick for years fighting cancer while building her fortress of evidence and protections. She could have exposed the Brennans earlier, but waited, ensuring maximum impact. "Why wait?" the interviewer asked Stanley in his segment. "Because she understood that premature action would only prune the branches. She wanted to destroy the roots. And she knew that would require the perfect storm: Aileen's strength, Nathan's conscience, Patricia's ambition, and the Brennans' own hubris. As the episode continued showing the ripple effects of justice, new laws passed, corruption, exposed families, healed, Libby tugged at my skirt. We'd brought her despite her age, wanting her to understand her heritage. "Grandma Elizabeth Brave," she whispered, recognizing my grandmother from photos. "Very brave," I agreed, "and very smart." The episode ended with a montage of Phoenix moments, victims starting new businesses, children graduating college on foundation scholarships, communities rebuilt stronger than before. The credits rolled over a quote from my grandmother: "Evil flourishes when good people do nothing, but it withers when even one person says, 'No more.'" Applause filled the room. The series would air nationally, ensuring the victims' stories reached millions. Their pain wouldn't be forgotten, but neither would their resilience. As people mingled afterward, Nathan pulled me aside. "There's someone here who wants to meet you." He led me to a corner where an elderly woman sat her aide, helping her stand as we approached. Evelyn Morrison. She introduced herself, Stanley's aunt, and the reason Elizabeth started her investigation. I gasped. This was the pharmaceutical heiress Patricia had mentioned years ago, the one locked away in a psychiatric facility by the Brennans. "You're free," I breathed. Thanks to your grandmother. And you. Evelyn's voice was strong despite her frail appearance. Elizabeth visited me every month for 20 years, brought me books, kept my mind sharp, promised justice would come. She saved my sanity and my life. We didn't know. She never told anyone, said it would endanger me if the Brennans knew she'd found me. Evelyn gripped my hands. But I want you to know that your grandmother saved dozens of us in quiet ways. We call ourselves Elizabeth Sparrows. There are more than you know. As if on cue, others approached. A man whose family business survived because of anonymous tips about Gerald's plans. A woman whose daughter received a scholarship that kept her from the desperate circumstances the Brennans preyed upon. Story after story of quiet salvation. She couldn't save everyone, one man said sadly. My brother was already gone, but she saved me from following him into their web. How many? Nathan asked, awed. At least 50 that we know of, Evelyn said. She called us her constellation individual lights that would one day form a pattern everyone could see. The gathering evolved into something unexpected, a reunion of souls touched by my grandmother's protection. They shared stories, contact information, promises to help each other continue healing. Diane arrived late, flying in from Europe where she'd been tracking more hidden assets. She looked healthy, confident, nothing like the terrified woman who'd once adjusted jewelry nervously at family dinners. I found another 12 million, she announced quietly to Patricia and me. Swiss accounts the network thought were untouchable. It's all been seized. That makes the total recovered assets over 200 million, Patricia calculated. Possibly the largest victim restitution in financial crime history. It won't bring back the dead, Diane said softly, but maybe it helps balance the scales. As the evening wound down, our small family gathered Nathan, Libby, and me, with Sandra's family joining us. We stood before a new addition to our office, a portrait of Elizabeth Hartley commissioned by the survivors she'd protected. Tell us again about Grandma Elizabeth. Libby demanded her new favorite bedtime story request. She was a teacher. I began lifting my daughter to see better, but not in a classroom. She taught through action. She showed us that evil can dress in expensive clothes and speak in cultured tones, but it's still evil. That good people have to be smart, patient, and brave. That protecting others sometimes means playing a very long game. And she won, Libby asked, though she knew the answer. We all won, Nathan said, kissing our daughter's head, because she taught us how. Later that night, after Libby was asleep and the dishes were done, Nathan and I sat on our porch watching stars appear, the same stars my grandmother had watched while planning her careful campaign. Do you think she knew, Nathan asked, how it would all turn out? I think she hoped, and she prepared for every possibility. I leaned against him, but I don't think even she imagined how complete the victory would be. The Brennan network destroyed. Hundreds of millions returned to victims. Laws changed. Families healed. He shook his head. It's almost unbelievable. The best part, I said, is that it's not ending. Every scholarship, every family helped, every truth told the ripples keep spreading. Phoenix flowers everywhere. A sparrow landed on our porch rail, tilting its head at us curiously before flying away. Such a small bird, easily overlooked. But we knew better now. Knew that size didn't determine strength, that patience could overcome power, that love could outlast greed. What would you tell her? Nathan asked. If you could talk to your grandmother one more time. I thought carefully. That her sparrow grew talons, that the nest is safe, that her great-granddaughter will know a world with less shadows because of her light. And thank you. Always thank you. We sat in comfortable silence, two phoenixes who'd found each other in the ashes, building a life the predators had tried to steal. Inside, our daughter slept peacefully, protected by the fortress of justice her great-grandmother built, and we maintained. The Brennan Empire was history. The Hartley legacy was eternal, and somewhere among the stars, I like to think Elizabeth Hartley was smiling, her long game finally complete, her sparrows finally free to soar. The next morning brought new challenges, new families seeking help, new battles against those who would prey on the vulnerable. But we faced them with confidence, born from surviving the worst wisdom inherited from the best, and the absolute certainty that evil could be defeated by good people who refused to give up. "Ready for another day?" Nathan asked over breakfast, Libby babbling happily between us. "Ready." I confirmed, thinking of all the Elizabeth sparrows out there quietly building better worlds. Let's make Grandma proud. And we did. Every single day we did. Thank you for joining Aileen and Nathan on their incredible journey. Remember, evil flourishes when good people do nothing but it withers, when even one person says no more. Until next time, may you find the strength to build phoenix flowers from whatever ashes life brings your way.